Ladies and gentlemen, if you are enjoying my videos, please click the like button. It is the only way the YouTube algorithm really notices me. I would be very grateful to you. Kira was awakened by the songs of birds and the bright sunlight of a Saturday morning. She woke up feeling unusually calm and serene. Normally, her mornings were filled with the weight of worry and a lingering sense of unease. Today, however, the tranquility seemed almost unsettling in its rarity. The sunlight streaming through the window cast long, golden beams across her room, illuminating dust particles that danced in the air. She lay still for a moment, listening to the harmonious chirping outside, trying to reconcile this peaceful start with the usual tension that clouded her mind. There was something almost eerie about the calmness, a quiet before an unseen storm. As she slowly got out of bed, Kira couldn't shake the feeling that this unusual serenity was but a deceptive veil over the dark reality that awaited her. Finding the spot beside her empty, Kira realized that Alyosha had already gone fishing with Matveyich. She sighed, missing the comfort of his presence, but also feeling a strange relief at having the morning to herself. The absence of her usual morning nausea added to the disconcerting sense of tranquility that pervaded the house. Normally, the mornings were filled with a heavy sense of dread, but today the air seemed lighter, almost deceptively so. She dressed quickly, the silence around her amplifying every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of fabric. Her mind wandered as she buttoned her shirt, her thoughts drifting to the unsettling dreams she had been having lately, dreams filled with shadows and whispers, with eyes watching her from dark corners. Trying to shake off the lingering unease, she stepped outside. The crisp morning air was invigorating, the sun casting a golden hue over the landscape. As she walked onto the porch, she noticed a small table set up with breakfast. The sight stopped her in her tracks. Matveyich had clearly taken care to lay out a simple yet inviting meal. The spread included freshly baked bread, butter, jam, and a pot of steaming tea. The meticulousness with which everything was arranged struck her as both comforting and eerie. Kira approached the table, her steps cautious. The steam rising from the hot tea and the aroma of warm bread filled the air, adding to the almost surreal atmosphere. She sat down, her eyes scanning the surroundings. The tranquility was almost oppressive, a stark contrast to the usual morning chaos. The food tasted good, but there was an unsettling quality to the scene, as if it were part of a carefully crafted illusion. As she ate, she couldn't help but glance towards the distant lake, where Alyosha and Matveyich would be by now, casting their lines into the still waters. The thought of them out there, in the serene yet haunting landscape, added to her growing sense of foreboding. Each bite she took felt heavy, laden with the weight of her thoughts and the dark undertones of the morning. Kira forced herself to finish the meal, each mouthful a reminder of the normalcy she desperately wanted to cling to, yet found increasingly hard to trust. The breakfast, though delicious, seemed like a veiled attempt to mask the underlying tension. She sipped her tea, the warmth spreading through her, but it did little to dispel the chill that had settled in her bones. After finishing, she sat back, her mind racing. The peace of the morning felt fragile, like a thin veneer over something dark and menacing. She couldn't shake the feeling that this deceptive calm was merely the prelude to something much more sinister. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting longer shadows, Kira knew that the day's events would unravel the true nature of this unsettling tranquility. As Kira watched Alyosha and Matveyich fishing by the lake, her mind wandered to thoughts of her pregnancy. The sun glinted off the water, creating a picturesque scene that seemed almost too perfect. Alyosha's laughter mixed with Matveyich's gruff but good-natured comments, their voices carrying over the calm surface of the lake. Yet, amidst this tranquility, Kira felt a storm brewing within her. She placed a hand on her abdomen, still flat but harboring the seed of a new life. The reality of her pregnancy weighed heavily on her. She had always valued her freedom, cherishing the ability to make spontaneous decisions and live without constraints. The prospect of motherhood, while beautiful in its own way, felt like a chain slowly winding around her, tightening with each passing day. Her thoughts became a swirling maelstrom of conflicting emotions. On one hand, the idea of nurturing a life, of watching her child grow and guiding them through the world, filled her with a sense of profound purpose. On the other hand, the thought of losing her autonomy, of being tied down by the endless responsibilities of motherhood, sent a shiver down her spine. Kira's gaze drifted back to the lake. Alyosha was reeling in a fish, his face lit up with excitement. Matveyich stood nearby, offering advice and encouragement. They looked so content, so sure of their place in the world. Kira envied their simplicity, their ability to find joy in the moment without the burden of such a monumental decision weighing on their minds. A voice in her head whispered that she could still change her mind, that it wasn't too late to reclaim her freedom. But another voice, softer yet more insistent, reminded her of the potential joy and fulfillment that could come from embracing this new chapter of her life. The two voices clashed, creating a cacophony of doubt and fear that reverberated through her mind. Her head began to ache, the pressure building behind her eyes. She felt torn in two, as if the life she had known and the life she was about to step into were pulling her in opposite directions. The idyllic scene before her, a man she loved, a peaceful morning by the lake, seemed almost like a cruel mockery of the turmoil she was experiencing. Kira closed her eyes, taking a deep breath in an attempt to calm the chaos within. The decision she faced was not one to be made lightly, and the weight of it pressed down on her like a tangible force. She knew she had to find clarity, to come to terms with the path she would choose. But in this moment, surrounded by the deceptive peace of the morning, she felt more lost than ever. The haunting beauty of the landscape, the serene facade, contrasted sharply with the darkness of her thoughts. The sense of impending doom that had lingered since she woke up seemed to grow stronger, casting a shadow over the bright day. Kira felt as though she were standing on the edge of a precipice, staring into an abyss of uncertainty. The future stretched out before her, shrouded in mystery and tinged with fear. The voices in Kira's head grew louder, clashing and competing for dominance. One voice urged her to keep the child, to embrace the life of motherhood and all the joy and fulfillment it could bring. It spoke of the wonder of watching her child grow, of nurturing a new life and creating a bond that would last forever. This voice painted a picture of a warm, loving home, filled with laughter and the sweet innocence of a child. The other voice was darker, more insistent. It reminded her of her dreams of freedom, of the adventure she had always wanted to embark upon. It whispered of the thrill of exploring new places, of living a life untethered by responsibilities. This voice warned her that motherhood would be a prison, chaining her to a life of mundane routines and endless sacrifices. It spoke of lost opportunities and the slow death of her dreams. As the voices battled, Kira's head began to throb. The pain started as a dull ache at the base of her skull, but soon spread, pulsating behind her eyes. She pressed her fingers to her temples, hoping to alleviate the pressure, but the voices only grew louder, more urgent. She tried to focus on the scene before her, Alyosha and Matveyich by the lake. The serene landscape, but the tranquility of the morning felt like a cruel contrast to the turmoil inside her mind. The peacefulness seemed almost mocking, a stark reminder of the storm brewing within her. The voice advocating for freedom grew more desperate, conjuring images of exotic locales, of spontaneous road trips, of nights spent under the stars without a care in the world. It spoke of the suffocating weight of motherhood, of the endless cycle of feeding, changing, and sleepless nights. It warned that once she became a mother, she would never be able to go back to the life she cherished. Yet the other voice, softer but persistent, spoke of love and connection. It reminded her of the moments she had seen between mothers and their children, the unconditional love that seemed to radiate from them. It told her that this love could be hers, that she could find a new kind of freedom in the bond with her child. Kira's thoughts spiraled, the voices blending into a cacophony of doubt and fear. She felt a wave of nausea rise, not from morning sickness, but from the overwhelming anxiety that gripped her. She knew she was at a crossroads, and the weight of the decision threatened to crush her. The headache intensified, a sharp, stabbing pain that made her wince. She closed her eyes, trying to block out the voices, the images, the pressure. But the doubts persisted, relentless and unforgiving. As the pain reached its peak, Kira was struck by a sudden, terrifying realization she didn't know what she wanted. The certainty she had once felt was gone, replaced by a gaping void of indecision. The fear of making the wrong choice loomed over her, a shadow that darkened even the brightest parts of her mind. The idyllic morning, with its birdsong and sunshine, seemed distant and unreal. All Kira could feel was the pounding in her head, the churning in her stomach, and the suffocating weight of her doubts. The serene landscape before her was a facade, a thin veil over the chaos within. The voices continued their relentless battle, each argument driving the knife of uncertainty deeper into her mind. And as she sat there, caught between the life she had and the life she could have, Kira felt herself slipping further into the abyss of her own fears. Alyosha and Matveyich returned from their fishing trip with a bucket brimming with fresh catches, their faces flushed with the satisfaction of a successful morning. Alyosha's eyes sparkled as he recounted their exploits, the thrill of each catch, the banter shared by the lake. Kira, despite the storm of doubt still raging in her mind, felt a flicker of warmth at the sight of his happiness. She moved to help them, eager to be useful, to feel connected. Matveyich, with his usual gruff kindness, gently pushed her aside. "You should rest, Kira. We've got this. You've been through enough already." His words, though well-meaning, stung. They reminded her of the precariousness of her situation, of the delicate balance she was trying to maintain. She wanted to argue, to insist on helping, but the weariness in her bones and the lingering ache in her head persuaded her otherwise. She nodded, giving in, and watched as the two men worked efficiently, cleaning and preparing the fish. The day slipped away quickly, the hours blurring together in a haze of small tasks and fleeting moments of calm. Kira found herself drifting through the afternoon, her thoughts returning to the internal conflict she couldn't escape. The tranquility of the morning seemed like a distant memory, overshadowed by the relentless uncertainty gnawing at her. As evening descended, they gathered in the cozy warmth of the bathhouse. The steam wrapped around them like a comforting blanket, the heat seeping into Kira's tense muscles, providing a temporary respite from her worries. The conversation flowed easily between Alyosha and the flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows on the walls, adding a sense of intimacy to the evening. Matveyich, his face softened by the dim light, shared stories of his youth, tales of adventure and mischief that brought a rare smile to Kira's lips. Alyosha chimed in with his own anecdotes, the two men's laughter filling the space, driving away the lingering shadows of Kira's doubts, if only for a while. Yet, even in this moment of relative peace, a subtle tension hung in the air, an undercurrent of unspoken worries. Kira could see it in Alyosha's eyes when he glanced at her, a flicker of concern that mirrored her own fears. She knew he sensed her unease, even if he didn't fully understand its depth. The shared silence between them spoke volumes, a quiet acknowledgement of the uncertain path ahead. As the night wore on, the warmth of the tea and the company wrapped around Kira like a cocoon, offering a fragile sense of comfort. She listened to the rhythmic sound of Alyosha's voice, the reassuring cadence of Matveyich's laughter, and tried to hold on to the fleeting sense of normalcy. But in the back of her mind, the doubts and fears continued their relentless whispering, a dark undercurrent beneath the surface calm. Finally, as the last embers of the fire died down and the house settled into silence, Kira allowed herself to be led to bed by Alyosha. His touch was gentle, his presence a steady anchor in the storm of her thoughts. As she lay down, the weight of the day pressed heavily on her, and she felt herself teetering on the edge of sleep. The darkness of the night closed in, bringing with it the familiar shadows and whispers. Kira knew that the peace she felt was fragile, that the real challenge lay in the days to come. But for now, in the quiet of the night, with Alyosha's warmth beside her, she allowed herself to drift into a restless sleep, her dreams haunted by the echoes of her fears. As the night grew darker and the stars began to twinkle faintly in the sky, the three of them gathered in the gazebo, seeking refuge from the encroaching chill. The air was thick with the scent of pine and the remnants of the evening's bathhouse steam. Alyosha poured them each a cup of tea, the warmth a comforting contrast to the cold that nipped at their skin. The conversation, which had meandered through various mundane topics, took a more somber turn. Matveyich, his face lined with years of hard living and hard liquor, leaned back in his chair and sighed. "You know, Kira," he began, his voice carrying the weight of experience, "there's something about this village. The way life is lived so openly, you can't hide much here, especially not something like drinking." "Kira, Her own thoughts, clouded with the weight of her internal struggles, looked up, curious. Alyosha nodded, encouraging the old man to continue. He had heard Matveyich speak of this before, but he knew Kira hadn't. In the city. Matveyich continued, people have walls to hide behind, doors that close them off from the world. You can drink yourself into oblivion and no one would be the wiser. Neighbors don't pry, they don't want to know. But here in the village, it's different. Everyone knows everyone else's business. If a man stumbles home drunk, the whole village sees it. They talk about it. It becomes part of the daily gossip. Kira nodded slowly, the gravity of his words sinking in. She had seen it herself during her time here. The whispers, the knowing glances exchanged over garden fences, the unspoken judgments passed in the open air. The village was a place where secrets were few and far between. Matveyich took a sip of his tea, his eyes distant, lost in memories. It's not just about the drinking, he said softly. It's about what the drinking hides. In the city, the loneliness, the despair, it all stays hidden behind closed doors. But here, it's all laid bare. The drinking becomes a way to cope, a way to dull the edges of a hard life. Kira shivered, not from the cold, but from the eerie resonance of his words. She thought of the struggles she faced, the inner turmoil that gnawed at her, and wondered how different it would be if her pain were as visible as the village drunkard's stumble. There was something profoundly unsettling about the idea of one's deepest struggles laid bare for all to see, judged not just by oneself, but by an entire community. Alyosha, sensing the somber mood, reached out and took Kira's hand. Matveyich has seen a lot, he said gently. He knows what he's talking about. It's a hard life out here, but it's honest. People don't have the luxury of hiding their problems. It makes them face them, for better or worse. Matveyich nodded in agreement. That's right. And sometimes facing those problems is the hardest thing of all. Drinking. It's an escape, sure, but it's also a cry for help, a sign that someone's struggling. Here, we see that struggle every day. It's part of life. The conversation left Kira feeling uneasy. The starkness of village life, the inability to hide one's flaws and failures, felt suffocating. Yet there was also something brutally honest about it. There were no pretenses, no facades. People were forced to confront their demons, whether they wanted to or not. As the night wore on, the three of them sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The flickering light of the lantern cast long shadows, creating an atmosphere that was both comforting and disquieting. Kira found herself drawn to the raw truth in Matveyich's words, even as it unsettled her. It was a reminder that the darkest parts of human nature could not be hidden forever. In the end, they always found a way to the surface. Matveyich's eyes grew darker, the weight of countless memories etched into his weathered face. The night was quiet, save for the occasional crackle of the fire and the whisper of the wind through the trees. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a hushed, almost reverent tone as he began to speak. There was a woman in our village. He began, his gaze distant, by the name of Lubanya. She was once vibrant and full of life, but the years in the bottle had taken their toll. One night, after a particularly long and brutal bender, Lubanya woke up with a start. The room was dark, the kind of darkness that presses in on you, that seems to choke the very air from your lungs. She felt a deep, gnawing thirst and a bone-chilling cold that seemed to seep into her very soul. Kira shivered, the image Matveyich painted vivid in her mind. She could almost see Lubanya, huddled in the gloom, shivering uncontrollably. She tried to rise. Matveyich continued, but her limbs felt like lead, her head pounded with a fierce, unrelenting ache. She fumbled for the lamp, her hands trembling so violently she could barely light it. When the dim light finally flickered to life, it revealed the stark reality of her situation. The room was in shambles, a testament to her descent into despair. Lubanya's house had once been a home, filled with warmth and laughter. Now, it was a wreck. The walls were bare, the furniture reduced to kindling, the remnants of a life slowly consumed by the relentless need for alcohol. Even the fence outside had been torn apart, each plank used to feed the fire that struggled to keep the cold at bay. She realized there were no more logs left for the stove, Matveyich said, his voice barely a whisper. No wood, no warmth, nothing but the biting cold and the crushing weight of her own choices. Desperation clawed at her as she stumbled to the window, her breath frosting the glass. Outside, the world was silent, blanketed in a thick layer of snow. There was no one to help, no one to turn to. Kira could feel the chill in the air, the hopelessness that must have enveloped Lyubanya in that moment. It was a stark reminder of how quickly life could spiral out of control, how easily one could be swallowed by the darkness. She wrapped herself in a threadbare blanket. Matveich went on, but it did little to stave off the cold. Her mind was a whirlwind of regret and sorrow. She thought of her son, just a boy, asleep on the old, tattered sofa, covered in nothing but a ragged coat. He was all she had left, and even he was slipping away from her, just like everything else. The story hung in the air, heavy with unspoken tragedy. Kira's heart ached for Lyubanya, for the choices that had led her to this moment of despair. It was a chilling reminder of the fragility of life, the thin line between hope and hopelessness. Lyubanya knew she had to do something, Matveich said, his voice trembling slightly. But what could she do? The village had already turned its back on her, and the city was a world away. The bottle, once her solace, had become her prison, and now in the dead of night she was utterly alone, with nothing but her regrets and the icy grip of reality. The silence that followed was thick, almost suffocating. Kira felt a tear slip down her cheek, the weight of Lyubanya's story pressing heavily on her heart. She looked at Matveich, seeing the pain in his eyes, the sorrow for a life lost to the cruel grip of addiction. As the fire crackled and the night deepened, Kira couldn't shake the image of Lyubanya, alone and desperate, a stark reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the edge of the light. It was a story that would haunt her, a chilling testament to the power of despair and the relentless grip of the past. Lyubanya woke abruptly in the middle of the night, the remnants of a fevered dream clinging to her consciousness like a shroud. Her head pounded with a relentless, throbbing pain, each heartbeat sending shock waves of agony through her skull. Her body felt heavy, unresponsive, as if weighed down by invisible chains. Every breath she took was a struggle, her lungs aching for air in the stale, suffocating atmosphere of the room. The dim light from the single flickering candle cast long, eerie shadows across the walls, revealing the squalor that had become her life. The small, cramped space was cluttered with broken furniture, discarded bottles, and filthy rags. The air was thick with the stench of neglect and decay, a foul mix of stale alcohol, sweat, and mold. Lyubanya's gaze fell upon the old, tattered sofa across the room. There, huddled under a threadbare, worn-out military coat, was her 4-year-old son. His small body was curled up tightly, seeking warmth and comfort in the inadequate cover. His face, pale and gaunt, was barely visible beneath the coat, his breathing shallow and labored. The sight of him, so vulnerable and fragile, sent a jolt of guilt and sorrow through Lyubanya's heart. She tried to push herself up from the mattress, but her limbs were heavy and uncooperative. The effort left her gasping, her vision swimming with dark spots. She forced herself to sit up, ignoring the wave of nausea that threatened to overwhelm her. Her hands shook as she reached for the bottle of water on the floor beside her, the only source of hydration in the bleak room. She drank greedily, the cold water a brief respite from the dryness that had overtaken her throat. As she sat there, trying to gather her strength, the full weight of her situation bore down on her. The house was in ruins, the walls stained and crumbling, the windows cracked and letting in drafts of icy air. The fireplace, once the heart of their home, was cold and empty, the last of the firewood long gone. She had used everything, even the wooden fence outside, in a desperate attempt to keep the cold at bay. Lyubanya's thoughts drifted to the past, to the choices that had led her to this moment of utter despair. She had once been hopeful, full of dreams for a better future. But the relentless grip of addiction had stripped her of everything: her dignity, her dreams, and now, the warmth and safety of her home. Her son, innocent and undeserving of such a harsh existence, was paying the price for her failures. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them away, refusing to succumb to the weakness that threatened to overwhelm her. She had to find a way to protect her son, to give him a chance at a life better than this. The gnawing hunger, the biting cold, and the crushing weight of her own self-loathing were nearly too much to bear, but she couldn't let it defeat her. The wind howled outside, rattling the fragile windows, and Lyubanya knew she had to act. She couldn't let another night pass in this state of hopelessness. She had to find a way to keep them both warm, to find some scrap of hope in the darkness that surrounded them. With a resolve born of desperation, she forced herself to her feet, swaying unsteadily as she moved towards the sleeping boy. She gently adjusted the coat around him, whispering a silent promise to him and to herself that she would find a way out of this nightmare. In that moment, Lyubanya knew that the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges. But for the sake of her son, she was willing to face whatever darkness lay ahead. As the night stretched on, she steeled herself against the cold and the fear, determined to reclaim the remnants of her shattered life and forge a path to a better future. Lyubanya's thirst was overwhelming as she stumbled across the dimly lit room in search of water. Her parched lips cracked with every breath, her tongue clinging uncomfortably to the roof of her mouth. Finally, she found a half-empty bottle tucked away in a corner, its contents murky but still drinkable. With trembling hands, she unscrewed the cap and brought it to her lips, the cool liquid offering a fleeting relief as it trickled down her throat. As she drank, her eyes swept over the squalor that surrounded her. The room, once a place of modest comfort, had deteriorated into a cesspool of filth and decay. Empty bottles littered the floor, their labels peeling away, while discarded cigarette butts and scraps of food lay scattered amidst the debris. The air was thick with the stench of neglect, a nauseating cocktail of stale sweat, rotting garbage, and the acrid tang of old alcohol. The sight and smell of the room churned Lyubanya's stomach, threatening to bring up the meager contents she had managed to consume. She fought back the rising bile, forcing herself to focus on the immediate task of quenching her thirst. The walls, once painted with hope and dreams, were now stained and peeling, their surfaces marred by streaks of mold and patches of dampness. The window panes, grimy and cracked, offered a distorted view of the desolate landscape beyond a bleak reminder of the world she had once known. In the corner, a pile of soiled blankets and worn-out clothing served as her makeshift bed, the only refuge from the harsh realities of her existence. The thin fabric offered little protection from the biting cold that seeped through the cracked walls, chilling her to the bone. Yet it was here that she found solace in fleeting moments of sleep, however fitful and restless they might be. As she finished the last drops of water, Lyubanya felt a surge of despair wash over her. How had it come to this? Once, she had believed in a future filled with promise and possibility. Now, her days were consumed by a relentless struggle for survival, a battle against hunger, cold, and the gnawing emptiness within her soul. But amidst the despair, a flicker of determination remained. She knew she couldn't continue like this, trapped in this cycle of despair and degradation. Somewhere, buried beneath the layers of hardship and sorrow, lay a glimmer of hope, a faint whisper of possibility that urged her to keep fighting, to find a way out of the darkness that threatened to engulf her. With a heavy heart and weary limbs, Lyubanya gathered her strength. She knew there were no easy answers, no quick fixes to the tangled mess of her life. But as she gazed around the dismal room, she vowed to reclaim what little dignity and purpose remained within her grasp. For herself, and for the child who depended on her resilience and resolve, she would endure. Lyubanya's memories flashed back to a time when she had made a solemn promise to herself never to become like her mother. It was a vow forged in the crucible of her childhood, marred by months of her mother's relentless drinking. The consequences had been dire. Sympathetic neighbors had intervened, whisking Lyubanya and her younger brother away from the chaos of their home. They found temporary refuge in the rustic embrace of Aunt Tamara's village home. Aunt Tamara, a weathered yet kind-hearted soul, had welcomed them into her modest dwelling with open arms. Her home, though humble, provided a stark contrast to the tumultuous environment Lyubanya had known. The air was filled with the scent of freshly baked bread and the comforting crackle of a wood-burning stove. It was here that Lyubanya had glimpsed moments of stability amidst the unpredictable currents of her young life. Yet the memories of her mother's descent into alcohol-fueled oblivion lingered like a shadow over her thoughts. She remembered the nights spent huddled with her brother, their small hands tightly clasped together in silent prayer for respite from the turmoil that surrounded them. The pain of abandonment was etched into their hearts, a constant reminder of the fragility of familial bonds shattered by addiction. Despite the hardships, Aunt Tamara had offered them a semblance of parental guidance and unconditional love. Her stern yet nurturing presence became a beacon of hope for Lyubanya, a reminder that amidst the darkness, there existed pockets of light and compassion. As Lyubanya recalled these formative years, a surge of determination welled up within her. She was determined not to repeat the mistakes of her mother, not to let the cycle of despair and dependency define her own journey. The promise she had made to herself to forge a different path, one of strength and resilience, burned bright in her heart. With Aunt Tamara's teachings echoing in her mind, Lyubanya vowed to create a stable and nurturing environment for her own child. She knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but she was ready to confront them with unwavering resolve. For her child's sake, and for the promise she had made to the frightened little girl she once was, Lyubanya would strive to break free from the shadows of her past and embrace a future filled with hope and possibility. After Aunt Tamara's passing, Lyubanya and her brother found themselves thrust into the harsh reality of life in an orphanage. It was a stark contrast to the fleeting stability Aunt Tamara had provided. The orphanage echoed with the cries of children who, like Lyubanya, had known loss and yearned for warmth in a world grown cold. Life became a daily struggle for survival, navigating through the routines of institutional care with a constant ache for the familial warmth they had once known. Lyubanya's education became a lifeline amidst the turmoil. In her final year of school, she received news that her mother had succumbed to the ravages of alcoholism. Amidst the bitter grief, an unexpected inheritance emerged her mother's home, a relic of their fractured past. The news brought a tumult of conflicting emotions. The dilapidated house stood as a tangible reminder of the tumultuous childhood she had fought to leave behind. Yet, intertwined with the pain were fragments of bittersweet memories, the fleeting moments of connection amidst the chaos, the echoes of a mother's love obscured by addiction. As Lyubanya stood on the threshold of adulthood, the weight of her mother's legacy loomed large. The inheritance symbolized more than a physical structure; it carried the echoes of broken promises and shattered dreams. It was a testament to the cyclical nature of addiction and the haunting specter of familial loss. Yet, amidst the shadows, a glimmer of resolve flickered within Lyubanya's heart. She vowed to reclaim her mother's legacy not through the scars of the past, but through the strength forged in adversity. The house, once a symbol of abandonment, would become a beacon of hope, a sanctuary where healing could begin, where the echoes of laughter could drown out the echoes of despair. With steadfast determination, Lyubanya embarked on the daunting journey of restoring the neglected house, breathing new life into its weathered walls. It was a labor of love and redemption, a testament to her resilience in the face of adversity, a testament to her unwavering commitment to break free from the shadows of her past and forge a future filled with purpose and possibility. After leaving the orphanage, Lyubanya returned to her native village with dreams of a better life. She envisioned resurrecting her family's homestead, tending to the land, and reclaiming a sense of stability for herself and her younger brother. The initial days were filled with hope and determination as she worked tirelessly to breathe life back into the neglected property. However, the weight of her past and the scars of childhood trauma proved to be formidable adversaries. Despite her best intentions, Lyubanya found herself grappling with inner demons that threatened to unravel her newfound aspirations. The loneliness of rural life, coupled with the haunting memories of loss and abandonment, became overwhelming. Gradually, the cracks began to show. The burden she carried seemed insurmountable, and the temptations of escape loomed large. Alcohol, a familiar companion from her tumultuous upbringing, whispered promises of solace and numbness. Initially, it was a coping mechanism, a temporary respite from the relentless ache of her past. Yet, with each passing day, the grip tightened. Her once promising homestead became a haven for local drinkers, drawn to the refuge of numbness that alcohol provided. The boundaries blurred between sanctuary and prison as the house echoed with the hollow laughter and vacant stares of those seeking solace in the bottom of a bottle. The dreams of a thriving household and a reunited family faded into the shadows of addiction and despair. For Lyubanya, the descent into alcoholism was a slow erosion of hope and dignity. The stark reality of her circumstances contrasted sharply with the vibrant dreams she had once harbored. The very walls that were meant to shelter her from the storms of life now bore witness to her unraveling. In the quiet moments of sobriety, flashes of clarity pierced through the haze of intoxication. She saw glimpses of the life she had hoped to build, the dreams she had nurtured for herself and her brother. Yet the allure of oblivion remained potent, a seductive veil shielding her from the harsh truths she dared not confront. As she navigated the treacherous terrain of addiction, Lyubanya wrestled with guilt and shame, grappling with the stark realization that she had become what she had vowed never to be, a prisoner of her own undoing, trapped within the suffocating embrace of alcohol's false promises. Her journey was a testament to the fragility of hope and the enduring legacy of trauma. It was a haunting reminder that the wounds of the past, left unhealed, can fester and consume even the most resilient spirit. In the labyrinth of addiction, Lyubanya fought a battle not just for survival, but for redemption, for the chance to reclaim her shattered dreams and forge a path towards a future defined by resilience rather than regret. After years of grappling with her own demons, Lyubanya's tragic tale took another devastating turn with the fate of her brother. He too succumbed to the allure of alcohol, descending into its numbing embrace until it consumed him entirely. His life ended abruptly in a drunken brawl, a senseless tragedy that echoed the familiar refrain of their tumultuous upbringing. When news of her brother's death reached Lyubanya, she found herself immobilized by a mixture of grief, guilt, and a profound sense of helplessness. The promise she had made to herself, to shield him from the darkness that had haunted their childhood, lay shattered alongside his lifeless body. In the haze of mourning, Lyubanya made a haunting decision to not attend her brother's funeral. The weight of her own demons bore down heavily upon her, rendering her incapable of facing the harsh reality of his passing. Instead, she retreated further into the solace that alcohol offered, seeking refuge in its numbing embrace as the world around her continued its relentless march forward. Amidst the turmoil of loss, Lyubanya inherited her brother's home, a stark reminder of the intertwined fate that had bound them both. Yet, where others might have seen a chance for renewal or closure, Lyubanya saw only a means to sustain her spiraling addiction. With a heavy heart and trembling hands, she hastily sold the property, its walls whispering silent echoes of their shared childhood dreams, now shattered beyond repair. The proceeds from the sale disappeared swiftly into the bottom of countless bottles, each drop a bitter salve for the gaping wound left by her brother's untimely demise. The fleeting semblance of comfort it offered was a cruel illusion, masking the raw anguish that threatened to consume her from within. Lyubanya's journey, once brimming with tentative hope and resilient determination, had veered sharply into the abyss of despair. Her brother's death served as a chilling reminder of the relentless grip of addiction, a cycle of suffering from which neither of them had been able to break free. In the lonely depths of her grief, Lyubanya grappled with the haunting specter of regret. She had failed her brother in life, and now, in death, she found herself unable to grant him even the dignity of a final farewell. The weight of her choices bore down upon her with crushing force, a burden she carried with a heart heavy with sorrow and a soul ensnared by the insidious allure of alcohol's false promises. Her story was a tragic testament to the corrosive power of addiction, a harrowing journey through loss, regret, and the shattered fragments of dreams left unfulfilled. In the desolate landscape of her existence, Lyubanya navigated the treacherous waters of grief and guilt, grappling with the devastating consequences of choices made and promises broken. Yet, amidst the wreckage of her shattered life, a flicker of resilience remained, a fragile ember that dared to defy the suffocating darkness that threatened to engulf her. It was a testament to the indomitable human spirit, a whisper of hope amidst the relentless storm of despair that raged within her battered soul. Despite being diagnosed with infertility, Lyubanya defied the odds and gave birth to her son Semyon. His arrival into the world was a beacon of joy and hope amidst the bleakness that had consumed much of her life. Unlike his mother, Semyon was born perfectly healthy and beautiful, a stark contrast to Lyubanya's own fragile state. Initially, Lyubanya found herself overwhelmed by the demands of motherhood. The incessant crying of her newborn grated on her already frayed nerves, threatening to unravel the fragile equilibrium she had struggled to maintain. Each wail pierced through the silence of their small, dilapidated home, a poignant reminder of the responsibilities thrust upon her. Yet, through the haze of exhaustion and uncertainty, Lyubanya gradually found solace in the routine and structure provided by the government child support program. It offered practical guidance and financial assistance, bridging the chasm between her dreams and the stark reality of single motherhood. As Semyon grew, so did Lyubanya's begrudging acceptance of her role as a mother. She learned to decipher his cries, to anticipate his needs, and to find moments of fleeting joy in the simplest of interactions. The weight of her past struggles and the scars of her battles with addiction receded momentarily in the presence of her son's innocent laughter and curious gaze. Despite the hardships and the shadows that still loomed large in her life, Semyon became the anchor that tethered Lyubanya to a newfound sense of purpose. His laughter echoed through the worn walls of their home, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of unconditional love. In Semyon's eyes, Lyubanya glimpsed a reflection of her own fractured soul, a reminder of the vulnerabilities she had fought so hard to conceal. Yet, in his laughter and in the gentle touch of his tiny hands, she found the courage to confront her demons and to embrace the daunting yet redeeming journey of motherhood. Her story was a testament to the relentless resilience of the human spirit, a journey marked by loss, hardship, and the unwavering determination to carve out a future defined by hope, rather than haunted by the shadows of the past. Through Semyon, Lyubanya found redemption in the midst of adversity, a beacon of light guiding her through the darkest corners of her shattered dreams. As she cradled her son in the quiet moments before sleep claimed them both, Lyubanya dared to hope for a future where the echoes of her past would fade into whispers, where Semyon's laughter would drown out the haunting echoes of her own sorrowful journey. Despite her struggles with alcoholism, Lyubanya's son Semyon exhibited remarkable abilities that caught the attention of one of her drinking companions. This companion noticed Semyon diligently scribbling away in his notebook, showcasing skills far beyond his years. Intrigued and impressed by the boy's talents, the companion attempted to draw Lyubanya's attention to his son's potential. However, on that particular occasion, Lyubanya was inebriated and unable to muster any interest in her son's abilities. The world around her blurred through the haze of alcohol, obscuring the significance of her son's budding talents. Her mind, clouded by the weight of her own struggles and the numbing effects of alcohol, failed to grasp the importance of the moment unfolding before her. For Semyon, whose innocent efforts were met with indifference, it was a fleeting instance of unrecognized potential, a quiet demonstration of his burgeoning creativity and intellect overshadowed by his mother's ongoing battle with addiction. Despite his natural gifts and the potential they held, Semyon's aspirations remained confined within the walls of their modest home, overshadowed by the persistent specter of alcoholism that gripped their lives. In the stillness of that moment, as Semyon's accomplishments faded into the background of Lyubanya's intoxicated world, a poignant reminder emerged of the barriers that alcoholism erected between a mother and her son, a tragic reflection of the profound disconnect wrought by addiction. Yet, amid the darkness that enveloped their lives, Semyon's abilities continued to quietly blossom, a testament to the resilience of youth and the unyielding spirit that defied the shadows cast by his mother's affliction. His talent, though unrecognized in that moment, whispered of possibilities yet to be realized, a glimmer of hope amidst the turmoil that defined their existence. Thus, the tale of Semyon's overlooked talents became yet another chapter in Lyubanya's harrowing journey, a narrative etched with the complexities of addiction, the missed opportunities born of intoxication, and the quiet resilience of a child whose potential lay dormant, awaiting the day when it would be acknowledged and nurtured beyond the confines of their troubled home. With Semyon's arrival into Lyubanya's life came additional challenges, amplifying the complexities she already faced. Beyond battling her own alcoholism, she now had the responsibility of caring for her son, navigating the demands of parenthood amidst her turbulent circumstances. The presence of Semyon, a reminder of innocence and potential, contrasted starkly with the bleak realities of their existence. Among these challenges, the pressure from neighbors, particularly from one neighbor named Lenka, added a new layer of difficulty. Lenka, with a watchful eye and perhaps a judgmental disposition, took it upon herself to involve social services, raising concerns about Semyon's welfare under Lyubanya's care. Her actions were driven by a mixture of genuine concern and perhaps a dose of local gossip that often magnified issues within their small community. For Lyubanya, already grappling with personal demons and the strain of single-handedly raising a child, Lenka's interference intensified her sense of isolation and inadequacy. The scrutiny from neighbors like Lenka compounded the challenges she faced, creating an environment of heightened tension and scrutiny. In the context of their small village, where everyone's lives seemed intertwined and exposed, the intervention of social services represented a critical juncture, a moment when external perceptions and internal struggles collided, threatening to unravel the fragile equilibrium Lyubanya sought to maintain. The weight of societal judgment, compounded by her own battles with addiction and the responsibilities of motherhood, painted a grim portrait of her daily existence. Yet, amidst the turmoil and adversity, Semyon remained a beacon of hope, a testament to resilience and the enduring bond between mother and child, despite the shadows cast by their circumstances. His presence, though fraught with challenges and external pressures, symbolized a flicker of light amidst the darkness, a reminder that even in the bleakest moments, the potential for redemption and renewal lay within their grasp. Thus, the narrative of Semyon's upbringing intertwined with the complexities of addiction, societal scrutiny, and the unwavering determination of a mother torn between her demons and her devotion, a haunting tale etched into the fabric of their village, where whispers of judgment mingled with the unspoken struggles of a family navigating the treacherous waters of addiction and community perception. Lyubanya's indifference towards her son Semyon was stark, yet her fear of losing the child benefit exacerbated her anxiety over the looming threat of social services intervention. The juxtaposition of her emotional detachment and the practical concern for financial support underscored the complex layers of her predicament. Semyon, in his innocence, represented both a burden and a lifeline. While his presence should have stirred maternal instincts, Lyubanya's struggles with alcoholism clouded her ability to connect with him on a deeper level. Instead, the prospect of losing the child benefit, a critical source of income, triggered a nerve-wracking response in her. The threat of intervention from neighbors like Lenka intensified this anxiety. Their vigilance, driven by a mix of genuine concern and local gossip, created an atmosphere of constant scrutiny and judgment. For Lyubanya, who already wrestled with inner demons and the daily grind of survival, this external pressure added a layer of suffocating dread. In the small village where everyone knew everyone else's business, social services involvement loomed large, a potential disruption that could unravel the fragile balance of Lyubanya's existence. The fear of losing Semyon to state custody, coupled with the shame and stigma attached to such a possibility, weighed heavily on her already burdened shoulders. Amidst this turmoil, Semyon remained an unwitting pawn, caught between a mother's neglect and a community's watchful eye. His presence symbolized not just maternal obligation but also a lifeline, a conduit through which Lyubanya navigated the harsh realities of addiction and societal judgment. Thus, Lyubanya's reaction to the threat of social services intervention encapsulated the paradoxical nature of her existence, numb to maternal bonds, yet fiercely protective of the practicalities that tied her to her son. In this gripping tale of addiction, neglect, and the complexities of parenthood in a scrutinizing community, Lyubanya's fear mirrored the haunting realities faced by many caught in the throes of personal and societal strife. Lyubanya's realization of her need for a drink led her to make a decision to visit the local liquor dealer, Kalgan. Despite the oppressive weight of her circumstances, she trudged along the familiar path to his doorstep, her mind clouded with the urgent craving for alcohol that seemed to offer solace amidst her chaotic life. The journey to Kalgan's place was fraught with a mix of desperation and resignation. Each step echoed the relentless battle within her, a struggle against the demons of addiction and the harsh realities that drove her to seek temporary refuge in intoxication. The village paths, once familiar and comforting, now seemed to stretch endlessly, mirroring the endless cycle of her cravings and the inevitable consequences. Arriving at Kalgan's small, weather-beaten shack, Lyubanya hesitated briefly before knocking on the rickety door. Inside, the air was heavy with the pungent scent of alcohol and the faint aroma of tobacco. Kalgan, a grizzled man with a weathered face and piercing eyes, regarded her with a mix of familiarity and detachment, a dealer accustomed to the vulnerabilities of his customers. Lyubanya, her nerves on edge and hands trembling, managed to stammer out her request for a loan of spirits. Kalgan's response was measured, his voice gravelly, as he scrutinized her with an assessing gaze. Despite his taciturn demeanor, there was a hint of understanding in his eyes, a recognition of the shared struggle against addiction that bound them both to this ritual of transaction. With a reluctant nod, Kalgan fetched a bottle from a dimly lit corner of his makeshift store, the liquid inside gleaming amber under the flickering light of a solitary bulb. The transaction was swift yet laden with unspoken implications, an exchange not just of goods but of fleeting respite from the unrelenting hardships of their respective lives. As Lyubanya clutched the bottle tightly, its cool surface offering a deceptive promise of relief, she felt a surge of conflicting emotions: shame, relief, and a gnawing awareness of the cycle repeating itself. With a silent nod of gratitude or resignation, she turned away from Kalgan's gaze, retracing her steps back to the darkening shadows of her home, where the bottle awaited, a potent symbol of both escape and entrapment in her harrowing journey through addiction. Approaching the cracked mirror in her dimly lit room, Lyubanya confronted her reflection with a mix of resignation and bitterness. Her worn face stared back at her, adorned with a bruise beneath one eye, a painful reminder of the altercation with her partner, Kolka, who had violently seized the last remnants of their homemade moonshine. The mirror, once a mundane fixture in her life, now served as a merciless witness to the toll her existence had taken. The bruise stood out starkly against her pallid complexion, a visible manifestation of the domestic turmoil and the pervasive cycle of abuse and addiction that had ensnared her. Lyubanya's gaze lingered on her reflection, tracing the lines etched by hardship and the weary resignation that had settled in her eyes. Memories flooded her mind of Kolka's drunken outbursts, of shattered promises, and of the bitter taste of betrayal that clung to her existence like a stubborn stain. In this fleeting moment of self-confrontation, she felt a surge of conflicting emotions: anger at Kolka's betrayal, shame at her own inability to break free, and a deep-seated weariness that threatened to engulf her spirit. The bruise beneath her eye served as a tangible reminder of the fragile balance between survival and surrender that defined her daily existence. Turning away from the mirror, Lyubanya clenched her fists, her resolve momentarily strengthened by the harsh reality staring back at her. The bruise, though painful, symbolized more than just physical violence. It embodied the scars of her tumultuous journey through abuse, addiction, and the relentless pursuit of fleeting moments of solace in a world that seemed intent on testing her resilience to its limits. Steeled by the thought of obtaining alcohol, Lyubanya stepped out into the chilly October night air. The darkness enveloped her like a shroud as she made her way through the winding paths of the village towards Kalgan's house. The crunch of fallen leaves under her worn boots echoed in the quiet night, a stark contrast to the turmoil brewing within her. Arriving at Kalgan's doorstep, Lyubanya exchanged terse greetings with the man known for providing spirits to the desperate and needy. The transaction was swift, the bottle of alcohol exchanging hands as if sealing a pact with her inner demons. Without hesitation, she twisted open the cap and raised the bottle to her lips, the familiar burn of spirits cutting through the cold night air and numbing the ache in her soul. With each gulp, she felt a temporary reprieve from the gnawing emptiness that had become her constant companion. The alcohol flooded her senses, momentarily blurring the edges of her reality and offering a fleeting illusion of warmth and comfort. She knew she wouldn't make it home without first dulling the sharp edges of sobriety, navigating the familiar path of drunken stupor that had become both sanctuary and prison. The bitter wind whispered through the bare branches overhead, a reminder of the harshness of her existence and the relentless cycle of dependence that gripped her tightly. As she stumbled homeward, the bottle clutched in her trembling hands. Lyubanya was acutely aware of the emptiness that awaited her: a solitary room, shadows dancing on the walls, and the haunting silence that echoed her deepest regrets. The night enveloped her like a veil, concealing the scars of her journey as she trudged onward, a solitary figure lost in the labyrinth of her own making. Each step was a testament to the fragility of hope and the inexorable pull of addiction, weaving a tale of despair and resilience in the cold embrace of an October night. Inebriated and disoriented, Lubanya staggered in the opposite direction of her home, led astray by the numbing effects of alcohol. The chill of the October night seeped through her tattered clothes, exacerbating her growing weariness and drowsiness. Lost in the labyrinth of her intoxicated mind, she stumbled upon an abandoned house with dimly lit windows that seemed to glow warmly against the cold darkness. Drawn to the flickering light and the illusion of comfort it offered, Lubanya approached the forsaken dwelling with a mixture of curiosity and desperate longing. The facade of the house, weathered by time and neglect, loomed over her like a spectral sentinel in the night. The windows, faintly aglow, cast eerie shadows that danced on the ground, beckoning her closer with an otherworldly allure. Her footsteps echoed hollowly on the overgrown path leading to the front door, each step a testament to her wavering resolve and the consuming thirst for solace. The wooden porch creaked beneath her weight as she reached out a trembling hand to touch the peeling paint of the doorframe. The warmth emanating from within enveloped her senses, a stark contrast to the cold reality of her existence. With a deep breath that tasted of stale alcohol and regret, Lubanya pushed open the door, revealing a foyer cloaked in darkness save for a single flickering candle on a dusty table. The air inside was thick with the musty scent of neglect, mingling with the faint aroma of burning wax. Shadows danced on the walls like specters of forgotten memories, stirring a primal fear within her fragile state of mind. As she stumbled further into the abandoned house, her footsteps echoing in the empty halls, Lubanya felt a strange mixture of unease and fascination. Every corner held a promise of discovery, yet also concealed the unknown dangers that lurked in the shadows. The house seemed to breathe with a life of its own, whispering secrets long buried beneath layers of dust and decay. Caught in a haze of intoxication and despair, Lubanya found herself drawn deeper into the heart of the abandoned dwelling, unaware of the perilous path she tread. The flickering candlelight flickered ominously, casting fleeting glimpses of the haunted interior that mirrored the turmoil within her own troubled soul. Lost in the labyrinth of her own making, Lubanya's journey into the forsaken house became a metaphor for her relentless quest for refuge from the harsh realities of her existence, a quest fraught with illusions and dangers lurking just beyond the shadows. Seeing the faint glow emanating from the abandoned house, Lubanya paused for a moment, a fleeting sense of caution flickering in her clouded mind. The rational part of her, dulled by alcohol and desperation, whispered warnings of potential danger lurking within the dilapidated walls. Yet the primal urge for warmth and the numbing embrace of alcohol overpowered her wavering sense of self-preservation. With unsteady steps and a heart heavy with longing, Lubanya forged ahead toward the beckoning light. Each footfall echoed through the desolate night, a testament to her solitary journey into the unknown. The chill of the October air gnawed at her exposed skin, seeping through threadbare clothing and stirring a shiver of uncertainty in her weary bones. As she approached the weathered facade of the abandoned house, its decrepit visage loomed over her like a sentinel of forgotten dreams. The windows, faintly illuminated from within, cast a soft glow that danced across the overgrown path leading to the front door. Shadows played tricks on her weary mind, flickering in the periphery of her vision like elusive phantoms. Ignoring the subtle warning signs that whispered in the back of her mind, Lubanya reached out to push open the creaking door. The wooden frame groaned in protest, as if resenting the intrusion of an outsider into its silent realm. Inside, the air hung heavy with the scent of neglect and decay, mingled with the faint aroma of old wood and dust. A single candle flickered on a dusty table in the foyer, casting elongated shadows that danced upon the walls. The feeble light offered a semblance of comfort amidst the eerie silence that enveloped her. The warmth she sought seemed palpable, a stark contrast to the cold indifference of the world outside. With a mixture of trepidation and desperate resolve, Lubanya ventured further into the abandoned house, guided by the dim glow of the candle. Each step deeper into the labyrinthine corridors echoed with the weight of her solitude and the haunting echoes of her past. The house seemed to pulse with a life of its own, whispering secrets long buried beneath layers of neglect and abandonment. Lost in a haze of intoxication and longing, Lyubanya's journey through the Forsaken House became a metaphor for her relentless pursuit of solace, a quest fraught with illusions and dangers lurking just beyond the flickering candlelight. The shadows conspired to distort reality, blurring the lines between refuge and peril, leaving her trapped in a liminal space where fear and desire intertwined. As she navigated the labyrinth of her own making, Lyubanya's footsteps echoed hollowly in the empty halls, each echoing heartbeat a testament to her fractured soul. The abandoned house became a sanctuary of fleeting respite, offering temporary reprieve from the harsh realities that awaited her outside its crumbling walls. Driven by an insatiable thirst for warmth and numbness, Lyubanya delved deeper into the heart of darkness that awaited within the forsaken dwelling. The candlelight flickered ominously, casting long shadows that danced upon the walls, a haunting reminder of the fragile balance between salvation and self-destruction in her tumultuous world. Entering the abandoned house, Lyubanya was greeted not by the expected chill of neglect, but by an unexpected warmth that enveloped her senses. Inside, she discovered a semblance of comfort and inviting bed, a haven amidst the decay. Drained by her journey through the cold night and intoxicated haze, she succumbed to exhaustion, collapsing onto the soft mattress. In the throes of an uneasy slumber, Lyubanya was jolted awake by a presence, a tall, dark-haired stranger clad in a severe suit, holding aloft a bottle of spirits. His piercing gaze bore into hers with an intensity that cut through the fog of her inebriated mind. The dim light cast shadows that danced across his angular features, lending an aura of mystery and intrigue to his silent presence. For a fleeting moment, fear gripped Lyubanya's heart as she struggled to comprehend the stranger's intentions. Her senses, dulled by alcohol and fatigue, grappled with the surrealness of the encounter. Was he a savior or a harbinger of deeper peril lurking within the confines of this forsaken refuge? As silence lingered between them, the stranger's expression softened imperceptibly, his features betraying a hint of concern masked by a stoic facade. With deliberate movements, he extended the bottle towards her, his voice a low murmur that cut through the quiet like a whisper of reassurance in the night. "Drink," he urged, his tone commanding yet tinged with an undercurrent of empathy. His words hung in the air, laden with unspoken questions and uncharted possibilities. The bottle gleamed in the faint light, a tempting elixir promising fleeting solace from the tumult of her turbulent existence. Lyubanya hesitated, torn between instinctual caution and the desperate longing for the numbing embrace of alcohol. Her fingers trembled as she reached out, the cool glass meeting her lips with a bitter kiss that tasted of regret and resignation. The spirits burned her throat, igniting a fire that momentarily eclipsed the chill of uncertainty that gripped her soul. In the stranger's unwavering gaze, Lyubanya glimpsed a reflection of her own fractured resolve, a shared understanding born of silent struggles and solitary battles fought on the fringes of society. His presence, though enigmatic and cloaked in ambiguity, offered a fleeting sanctuary amidst the chaos that defined her fractured reality. As the night wore on, the stranger remained a silent sentinel at her side, a silent witness to the unraveling tapestry of her existence. In his presence, Lyubanya found an unexpected solace, a fleeting respite from the relentless currents that threatened to engulf her fragile spirit. Their encounter, shrouded in the shadows of the abandoned house, became a testament to the fragile threads that bound them together, a delicate dance of trust and trepidation, woven amidst the ruins of forgotten dreams and forsaken promises. And as dawn cast its tentative light upon the world outside, Lyubanya found herself grappling with the haunting uncertainty of what lay ahead, a world where strangers offered fleeting comfort, and the promise of tomorrow remained as elusive as the shadows that danced upon the walls of the abandoned house. The stranger, introducing himself as the guide, exhibited no hostility as he stood before Lyubanya in the dimly lit room. His presence, though initially unsettling, bore an air of curiosity rather than menace. With measured steps, he approached her with a calm demeanor that belied the eerie surroundings. Lyubanya, still grappling with the haze of alcohol and weariness, found herself confronted by this unexpected interloper who dared to engage her in conversation about her life's tumultuous course. The guide's words, delivered in a voice that carried a hint of both empathy and admonishment, cut through the fog of her thoughts. "Why do you cling to the bottle?" his inquiry, though gentle, pierced through the defenses she had erected over years of self-imposed isolation and numbing intoxication. His gaze, steady and unwavering, seemed to strip away the layers of pretense that shielded her from confronting the harsh realities of her existence. In his probing questions, the guide unearthed the buried truths that Lyubanya had long sought to bury beneath layers of alcohol-induced haze. He spoke of her unwavering devotion to spirits, contrasting sharply with her apparent indifference towards her own flesh and blood, her son, a beacon of innocence amidst the wreckage of her choices. "You have a son," the guide remarked, his tone carrying a mix of curiosity and subtle reproach. "What of him? Does his future hold no sway over your decisions?" Lyubanya, caught off guard by the stranger's insight, faltered in her response. Her thoughts, usually drowned out by the numbing effects of alcohol, now echoed painfully in the recesses of her mind. She grappled with the weight of his words, the truth they unveiled about her neglectful priorities and the fractured bonds she had forged with those closest to her. As the conversation unfolded, the guide revealed glimpses of a life she could have chosen a path divergent from the relentless pursuit of oblivion that had ensnared her. His presence, though enigmatic, offered a rare opportunity for introspection amidst the chaos that defined her fragile existence. "You have a choice," the guide intoned softly, his words carrying an undercurrent of both challenge and compassion. "To continue down this path of self-destruction, or to seize the chance for redemption." In the silence that followed, Lyubanya wrestled with conflicting emotions: the lingering allure of the bottle, a familiar crutch that promised fleeting solace, and the unsettling prospect of confronting the shattered fragments of her life. The guide's presence, though fleeting, cast a sobering light upon the shadows that enveloped her, forcing her to confront the stark truths she had long sought to evade. Their conversation, fraught with unspoken tensions and uncharted revelations, unfolded like a fragile tapestry of hope and despair, a testament to the fragile resilience of the human spirit amidst the wreckage of shattered dreams and forsaken promises. And as the night wore on, Lyubanya found herself standing at a crossroads, the guide's words echoing in the recesses of her consciousness, urging her to confront the choices that had led her to this precipice of uncertainty. In his presence, she glimpsed a fleeting opportunity for redemption, a chance to reclaim the fractured pieces of her shattered existence and forge a new path towards healing and renewal. But whether she would seize this chance or succumb once more to the numbing embrace of alcohol remained a haunting uncertainty that lingered in the shadows of the abandoned house, where truths lay buried beneath layers of regret and remorse. The guide's voice cut through the heavy silence of the room, his words laden with a mixture of concern and reproach. He gestured towards Lyubanya, his eyes piercing through the haze of her alcohol-induced stupor. "Your son," he began, his tone tinged with urgency, "is freezing at home as we speak." Lyubanya, swaying slightly where she stood, brushed off his words with a wave of indifference. "He's capable," she muttered dismissively, her voice tinged with defiance. "He's just 4, but he'll manage. Kids are resilient." The guide's expression softened briefly, his eyes reflecting a blend of sympathy and frustration. "Resilient, yes," he acknowledged quietly, "but they also need guidance, warmth, and above all, a parent's care." Lyubanya's gaze faltered for a moment, her thoughts veering uneasily between the comfortable numbness of denial and the unsettling truth that the guide's words stirred within her. She knew, deep down, that her son deserved better than the neglect she had grown accustomed to rationalizing. "He's better off without me," she muttered bitterly, her words more a defense mechanism than a genuine conviction. The weight of her choices bore down heavily upon her shoulders, a burden she had carried for far too long. The guide's response was measured, his voice tinged with quiet insistence. "No child should have to fend for themselves," he remarked evenly, his gaze holding hers with unwavering resolve, "especially not against the cold indifference of neglect." Lyubanya's resolve wavered under the weight of his words, a flicker of doubt crossing her features as she wrestled with the conflicting emotions that surged within her. The guide's presence, though unsettling, offered a stark reminder of the responsibilities she had long neglected in favor of fleeting escapism. "He needs you," the guide continued gently, his tone a gentle prodding against the walls she had erected around her heart. "Not just physically, but emotionally. Your absence casts a shadow that no child should have to endure." In the pregnant silence that followed, Lyubanya felt the weight of her son's absence like a heavy stone lodged in her chest. The warmth of the abandoned house offered little solace now, its comfort a stark reminder of the hollow emptiness that had come to define her existence. The guide's presence, though fleeting, stirred a dormant longing within her, a longing for connection, for redemption, and above all, for the courage to confront the shattered fragments of her fractured life. His words lingered like a haunting echo in the recesses of her mind, urging her to reclaim the faltering pieces of her maternal bond before it was too late. But whether Lyubanya would heed his words and muster the strength to confront her demons, or succumb once more to the alluring embrace of indifference, remained a haunting uncertainty that hung heavily in the air between them. In response to the guide's probing questions, Lyubanya's pent-up frustration spilled forth in a torrent of grievances. Her voice, tinged with bitterness and resignation, recounted a litany of hardships that had shaped her bleak existence. She shifted uneasily, the weight of her words heavy upon her shoulders, as she laid bare the tangled web of blame she had woven over the years. "My life has been nothing but a series of betrayals," she began, her voice wavering with a mixture of anger and despair. "My mother, she drank herself to death, leaving me and my brother at the mercy of indifferent relatives. They shuffled us from one place to another, never caring for our well-being." Lyubanya's gaze hardened momentarily as she recounted the failures of those she had once trusted. "My aunt, Tanya, she promised us a home but only offered cold comfort and empty promises. And my brother, consumed by the same demons that haunted our mother, he perished in a senseless brawl. No one cared enough to save him, just as no one cared enough to save me." Her words hung heavily in the air, a testament to the relentless cycle of abandonment and despair that had shaped her worldview. She shifted uncomfortably, her eyes avoiding the guide's probing gaze as she continued to lay bare the scars of her tumultuous past. "And my so-called companions," she spat bitterly, "they only dragged me deeper into the abyss of alcoholism, each sip another step towards oblivion. And my neighbors," she added with a scoff, "they called child services on me, thinking they know what's best for my son." Lyubanya's voice cracked with a mixture of defiance and self-pity as she recounted the injustices she perceived had been inflicted upon her. Each accusation carried the weight of years of perceived slights and betrayals, each grievance a testament to the fractured relationships that had defined her isolated existence. "And my last lover," she concluded with a bitter laugh, "he took my last drop of moonshine and left me bruised and broken. They all left me, one by one, to fend for myself." As she spoke, a flicker of vulnerability crossed Lyubanya's features, revealing the deep-seated pain that lay buried beneath layers of resentment and alcohol-fueled defiance. The guide listened in silence, his expression a mask of empathy and understanding, though his silence spoke volumes of the complexity of the journey that lay ahead for Lyubanya, a journey towards self-discovery, redemption, and perhaps a chance at reclaiming the fractured pieces of her shattered life. The guide's words cut through Lyubanya's defenses like a knife, forcing her to confront the stark reality of her neglectful motherhood. His voice, measured yet firm, echoed in the dimly lit room, resonating with a weight that matched the gravity of her situation. "You speak of many grievances," the guide began, his gaze unwavering as it bore into Lyubanya's troubled eyes. "But there is a glaring absence in your tale, a mention of your son. What of him?" His question hung heavy in the air, a poignant reminder of the child left unattended, vulnerable to the harshness of the world. Lyubanya's lips parted, but no words came forth immediately. She felt a pang of guilt claw at her insides, a bitter reminder of the priorities she had forsaken in favor of fleeting comforts. The guide's observation pierced through her defenses, laying bare the heartache that she had tried so hard to bury beneath layers of resentment and indifference. He's just a boy," Lyubanya finally managed to stammer, her voice tinged with a mix of defensiveness and shame. "He's strong. He can handle himself." Her words rang hollow even to her own ears, betraying the fragile facade of maternal strength she desperately clung to. The guide's response was gentle yet unyielding, his tone carrying a hint of reproach masked by understanding. "What kind of mother are you, Lyubanya?" he asked softly, his words probing the depths of her conscience. "Your son's fate rests solely on your shoulders. You alone hold the power to shape his future." Lyubanya flinched at his words, the weight of responsibility settling heavily upon her. She cast her eyes downward, unable to meet the guide's steady gaze. In that moment of introspection, she saw herself not as the defiant survivor she had always believed herself to be, but as a mother who had forsaken her most sacred duty. "He deserves better," she murmured quietly, more to herself than to the guide. The realization was a bitter pill to swallow, but one she could no longer ignore. Her son, her innocent child, was a casualty of her own neglect, a casualty she could no longer afford to dismiss. As the silence stretched between them, Lyubanya felt a flicker of resolve stir within her battered heart. The guide's words had ignited a spark of maternal instinct long buried beneath layers of pain and self-destruction. For the first time in what seemed like an eternity, she dared to entertain the possibility of redemption, a chance to rewrite the narrative of her shattered life and reclaim the role of a mother she had abandoned in pursuit of fleeting solace. The guide's presence loomed large in the quiet room, a beacon of guidance amidst the storm of Lyubanya's turbulent emotions. His words had stirred something dormant within her, a flicker of hope amidst the darkness that had consumed her for so long. As she wrestled with her inner demons, Lyubanya knew that the path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but for the sake of her son, she was willing to confront them head-on. And so, in the dimly lit room, amidst the echoes of past regrets and the uncertain promise of a future yet unwritten, Lyubanya began to reckon with the daunting task of rediscovering herself, a journey that would test her resilience, redefine her priorities, and ultimately offer her a chance at redemption as a mother. The guide's voice, calm yet laden with significance, resonated through the dimly lit room as he spoke to Lyubanya. His presence, once a source of uncertainty and unease, now offered a glimpse of an alternate path, a path fraught with foreboding, yet illuminated by a sliver of possibility. "I can show you a reality," the guide began, his tone measured but resolute. He gestured towards a door that materialized in the otherwise solid wall, its presence both unsettling and tantalizing. "A reality that may unfold if you continue down this path." Lyubanya's gaze flickered between the guide and the enigmatic doorway, her apprehension mingling with a morbid curiosity. The air around them seemed to thicken, charged with the weight of what lay beyond that threshold, an uncertain future shaped by her choices, or lack thereof. The guide's offer hung in the air like a silent challenge, inviting Lyubanya to confront the consequences of her actions head-on. There was no judgment in his demeanor, only a solemn acknowledgement of the gravity of her situation and the pivotal crossroads before her. "Step through," the guide urged gently, his voice a whisper against the backdrop of the room's heavy silence. "See for yourself what could be." Lyubanya hesitated, her mind racing with conflicting emotions. Fear, regret, and a glimmer of hope intertwined within her, each vying for dominance over her resolve. The door beckoned, its presence both an invitation and a warning, a doorway to a potential reality shaped by the echoes of her past and the choices that had led her to this pivotal moment. With a trembling hand, she reached out towards the door, her fingers brushing against the cool surface. Every fiber of her being trembled with uncertainty, yet a flicker of determination fueled her forward. As Lyubanya pushed the door open, the room seemed to blur around her, giving way to a surreal landscape that unfolded before her eyes, a tableau of potential futures, each tinged with shades of despair and fleeting glimpses of redemption. The scenes flickered like spectral images, offering glimpses of what could await her if she dared to step further into the unknown. The guide remained by her side, a silent witness to her inner turmoil. His presence offered no solace, only a steady reminder of the choices that lay ahead and the profound impact they would have on her and those she held dear. In that fleeting moment, as Lyubanya stood at the threshold between past and future, the weight of her decisions bore down upon her with an almost tangible force. The door stood as a metaphorical portal, a gateway to a reality shaped by the consequences of her actions, a stark reminder of the fragility of human resolve and the resilience required to forge a new path forward. And so, with a steadying breath and a heart heavy with newfound resolve, Lyubanya took a tentative step forward, crossing the threshold into the unknown, a journey that would test her courage, redefine her purpose, and perhaps offer her a chance at redemption amidst the shadows of her haunting past. Lyubanya approached the guide with cautious anticipation, her gaze fixed on the bright light emanating from beyond the door. As she stepped closer, a sense of wonder mingled with apprehension flooded her senses. The once foreboding doorway now radiated warmth and promise, transporting them into a picturesque cottage settlement bathed in golden sunlight. The guide stood beside her, a calm presence amidst the surreal beauty that surrounded them. His voice, steady and reassuring, broke the silence that enveloped them both. "This is the future," he explained, his words carrying a weight that echoed through the tranquil scene before them. The cottage settlement unfolded like a vivid painting before Lyubanya's eyes. Quaint cottages with flower-filled gardens lined neat cobblestone pathways. Children played joyfully under the shade of towering trees, their laughter ringing through the crisp air. Birds sang melodiously overhead, adding a symphonic backdrop to the idyllic tableau. The guide gestured towards a specific cottage, its facade adorned with colorful blooms and a welcoming front porch. "This could be your future," he continued, his voice gentle yet resolute. "A life filled with peace, warmth, and the love of a family." Lyubanya's heart fluttered with conflicting emotions as she absorbed the serene scene laid out before her. The contrast between this tranquil future and her turbulent present was stark, yet the allure of such tranquility tugged at her weary soul. The guide's words resonated deep within her, stirring a longing for stability and a yearning for redemption amidst the wreckage of her past. As she gazed at the cottage and the life it represented, doubts and fears clashed within her mind. Could such a future truly be within her grasp? Was she worthy of such happiness after years of turmoil and self-destructive choices? The guide's presence offered no answers, only a solemn reminder of the choices that lay ahead. He watched her closely, as if sensing the tumult of emotions raging within her. His eyes held a silent plea, a plea for her to embrace the possibility of change, to dare to believe in a future where warmth and love could replace the cold grip of addiction and neglect. With a hesitant but determined step, Lyubanya moved closer to the cottage, drawn by the allure of its promise. The bright light enveloped her, bathing her in a glow of hope and possibility. Behind her, the doorway shimmered, a portal between past regrets and a future yet to be written, a future where the choice was hers to make, where the brightness of hope could outshine the darkness of despair. And so, with each stride towards the cottage and the life it symbolized, Lyubanya embraced the uncertain path before her, a path illuminated by the radiant light of possibility, guided by the unwavering presence of the guide, and anchored by a flicker of hope that burned brighter than any fear or doubt that threatened to hold her back. Lyubanya stood mesmerized as she beheld the sight of a magnificent house and a luxurious car pulling into the driveway. The door of the vehicle opened, and a man stepped out, strikingly resembling her son, Semyon. The guide, ever present beside her, nodded subtly, as if confirming her recognition. The man, now revealed as a future version of Semyon, exuded confidence and success. His stride was purposeful, his demeanor assured. He greeted someone at the door with a warm smile, his features bearing a resemblance to Lyubanya's memories of her son, yet refined by time and accomplishment. And the guide's voice broke through the awestruck silence that enveloped Lyubanya. "This is Semyon in the future," he explained, his tone carrying a mix of pride and solemnity. "He has found his path, overcome challenges, and built a life of fulfillment and achievement." Lyubanya watched intently as future Semyon interacted effortlessly with the people around him. He seemed to radiate success and contentment, a stark contrast to the struggles and uncertainties that defined their present reality. The house stood as a testament to his accomplishments, a sanctuary of prosperity and stability. Mixed emotions surged within Lyubanya's heart, a swell of pride for her son's future success, mingled with a pang of regret for the rocky path they had traversed together. She recalled the trials they had faced, the moments of despair and missed opportunities, and wondered if she could have done more to pave a smoother road for him. As she observed future Semyon's gestures and expressions, a glimmer of hope stirred within her weary soul. Could this glimpse into his future serve as a catalyst for change? Could she still rewrite their story, guiding him towards a brighter, more secure future? The guide's presence offered no easy answers, but his silent encouragement spoke volumes. He gestured towards future Semyon, a silent invitation to contemplate the possibilities that lay ahead. The image of success and happiness before her was both a beacon of hope and a stark reminder of the choices that shaped their lives. With a deep breath, Lyubanya gathered her resolve. She envisioned a future where their struggles would be overshadowed by triumphs, where her son's potential would blossom unhindered by the shadows of their past. The sight of future Semyon ignited a spark of determination within her, a determination to confront her demons, to embrace change, and to strive for a future where success and happiness awaited not just Semyon, but herself as well. And so, with each passing moment in the presence of future Semyon, Lyubanya embraced the potential for transformation. The encounter with his successful self became a pivotal moment, a catalyst for her to reshape their narrative, to steer their journey towards a future bathed in the warmth of accomplishment and the boundless possibilities of tomorrow. Semyon, now a grown man, exuded an aura of success and confidence as he entered the grand house. His features, a blend of youthful vigor and mature composure, carried an air of accomplishment that Lyubanya couldn't help but admire. His strides were purposeful, his demeanor poised as he navigated through the foyer, seemingly familiar with every corner of the luxurious interior. Beside him, the guide walked silently, his presence a constant reminder of the surreal nature of their journey. Lyubanya followed cautiously, her eyes scanning the opulent surroundings with a mix of awe and disbelief. The house seemed to echo with the echoes of wealth and achievement, a stark contrast to the modest and often turbulent life she had known. Semyon paused in the hallway, casting a quick glance over his shoulder as if sensing their presence. His gaze met Lyubanya's, and for a moment, recognition flickered in his eyes, a glimmer of familiarity that bridged the gap between their past and this seemingly distant future. The guide gestured subtly, prompting Lyubanya to move closer. His silent encouragement urged her to absorb every detail of this momentous scene unfolding before her. Semyon continued down the hall, his movements fluid and assured, a testament to the journey he had undertaken to reach this point. As they entered a spacious living area, Lyubanya noticed framed photographs adorning the walls, images capturing moments of Semyon's life, each one telling a story of growth and achievement. There were pictures of him graduating, of travels to exotic places, and of joyful gatherings with loved ones. The snapshots painted a picture of a life rich in experiences and accomplishments, far removed from the hardships and struggles of their past. Semyon turned to face them, his expression a mixture of warmth and curiosity. Welcome, he greeted them, his voice confident yet tinged with a hint of nostalgia. He gestured towards the comfortable seating arrangements, inviting them to relax and share in the ambiance of his success. Lyubanya found herself overwhelmed by a flood of emotions: pride in seeing her son thrive, relief in witnessing the fruition of his potential, and a pang of regret for the moments she had missed along the way. She recalled the sacrifices and hardships they had endured, the doubts and fears that had clouded their journey, and wondered if she had done enough to guide him through life's challenges. The guide's presence remained a reassuring anchor amidst her swirling thoughts. He seemed to understand the weight of this moment, the convergence of past struggles and future possibilities encapsulated in Semyon's successful life. His silent demeanor spoke volumes, prompting Lyubanya to reflect on the choices that had led them here and the paths that lay ahead. Semyon spoke warmly, recounting snippets of his journey, lessons learned, obstacles overcome, and the dreams that had shaped his path. His words resonated with Lyubanya, offering glimpses into the depth of his resilience and the breadth of his aspirations. As the evening unfolded, Lyubanya found herself drawn into the warmth of Semyon's success. The house, once a distant dream, now stood as a testament to his determination and perseverance. Each corner whispered tales of triumphs and milestones. Each artifact spoke of a life enriched by experiences and accomplishments. In the quiet moments that followed, as Semyon and the guide engaged in conversation, Lyubanya allowed herself to envision a future where their shared journey would continue to unfold. The encounter with Semyon's successful self became a beacon of hope, a reminder that despite past hardships, the promise of a brighter tomorrow remained within reach. And so, as they lingered in the embrace of Semyon's success, Lyubanya felt a sense of renewal wash over her, a determination to support him, to cherish their bond, and to embrace the possibilities that lay ahead. The evening marked not just a glimpse into Semyon's accomplished life, but a profound revelation of the resilience and hope that had guided them through the trials of their shared journey. Inside the house, silence enveloped the opulent surroundings. Semyon, despite living amidst luxury, appeared hollow and lifeless as he engaged in business calls on his phone. The air of success that initially captivated Lyubanya now seemed to mask a deeper emptiness within him. The spacious rooms echoed with the hollowness of Semyon's conversations. His voice, crisp and efficient, navigated through deals and negotiations with a practiced ease, yet devoid of any personal warmth or passion. Each call seemed to emphasize the distance between the external trappings of success and the inner void that Lyubanya sensed in her son. As she observed Semyon pacing through the grand hallways, his figure casting fleeting shadows against the ornate furnishings, Lyubanya couldn't shake off the unsettling feeling that beneath the facade of prosperity lay a profound sense of loneliness and disconnect. The walls, adorned with expensive art and elegant decor, only served to amplify the stark contrast between material wealth and emotional desolation. The guide, ever-present yet unobtrusive, shared in Lyubanya's silent contemplation. His presence reminded her of the fragility of appearances, of the deceptive allure of external achievements that often mask deeper, unseen struggles. Semyon's life, once a beacon of success and promise, now appeared as a tableau of isolation and inner turmoil. In the quiet moments between calls, Lyubanya caught glimpses of her son's weariness, brief pauses, a furrowed brow, a distant gaze that hinted at thoughts beyond the immediate business at hand. The weight of responsibilities seemed to weigh heavily on him, casting a shadow over the grandeur that surrounded them. The once vibrant scenes of celebration and accomplishment depicted in the photographs now felt like distant memories, fading echoes of a life that had moved beyond her reach. Semyon's successful facade crumbled momentarily under the weight of his obligations, revealing glimpses of vulnerability and uncertainty that Lyubanya struggled to reconcile with the image of her son she had envisioned. As the evening wore on, the emptiness of the house seemed to mirror the emptiness within Semyon, a poignant reminder of the solitude that often accompanied success at the cost of personal fulfillment. The opulence that surrounded them now felt suffocating, a stark contrast to the simplicity and genuine connections Lyubanya had once cherished in their modest past. The guide's presence grew more pronounced, a silent witness to the complexities of Semyon's life and the choices that had led him to this point. His unspoken wisdom spoke volumes, urging Lyubanya to look beyond the surface and confront the harsh realities obscured by wealth and status. And so, amidst the grandeur that masked a deeper emptiness, Lyubanya found herself grappling with the unsettling realization that her son's outward success belied a profound inner void of solitude that echoed through the luxurious halls and whispered of untold sacrifices and unspoken burdens. As Semyon conducted his business calls, it became increasingly evident to Lyubanya that his professional endeavors extended into the realm of illicit financial operations. His discussions with Albert Valentinovich hinted at dealings that skirted legality, woven with intricate layers of risk and secrecy. Seated in the plush surroundings of his meticulously decorated office, Semyon's voice resonated with a calculated assurance as he navigated through conversations fraught with coded language and implications. Each phrase uttered carried weight, hinting at transactions that operated beyond the boundaries of conventional legality. Lyubanya, listening intently from the sidelines, felt a chill settle over her. The realization that her son was entrenched in clandestine financial activities stirred a mixture of fear and dismay within her. The once clear distinction between right and wrong blurred against the backdrop of Semyon's sophisticated operations, where profit seemed to justify the means, regardless of ethical considerations. Albert Valentinovich, a shadowy figure referenced in hushed tones, symbolized the nexus of Semyon's dangerous liaisons. His name carried a reputation that whispered through the corridors of power and illicit dealings, casting a looming presence over the unfolding narrative of Semyon's professional life. The intricacies of their discussions unfolded like a clandestine dance, each step choreographed to evade scrutiny and exploit loopholes in the financial system. Semyon's demeanor, while composed, betrayed glimpses of tension beneath the surface, a testament to the high stakes and inherent risks woven into the fabric of his chosen path. Lyubanya, torn between maternal concern and a growing sense of dread, struggled to reconcile the image of her son as a successful businessman with the harsh reality of his illicit dealings. The opulence that surrounded them now seemed tainted, its allure overshadowed by the ethical compromises and potential dangers lurking in the shadows of Semyon's world. As the conversation with Albert Valentinovich unfolded, Lyubanya's unease deepened. The implications of Semyon's involvement in illegal financial maneuvers weighed heavily on her conscience, painting a stark portrait of the lengths to which ambition and necessity could drive one, blurring the lines between legality and moral rectitude. In the dimly lit room, where the trappings of wealth coexisted with the moral ambiguity of Semyon's actions, Lyubanya confronted the chilling realization that her son's success was entwined with perilous alliances and clandestine dealings, a revelation that shattered the fragile illusion of security she had clung to. The guide, ever watchful in the background, silently bore witness to the unraveling complexities of Semyon's life, a reminder of the precarious balance between ambition and integrity, and the devastating consequences that could unfold when one strayed too far into the shadows of legality. Following Semyon's lead, Lyubanya and the guide found themselves in a grand library adorned with ornate bookcases and a sense of eerie silence. Semyon approached a particular section, his fingers deftly tracing along the spines until he located a hidden lever concealed within the intricacies of the woodwork. With a subtle click, a section of the bookcase swung open, revealing a concealed iron door secured with a complex keypad lock. The dim light filtering through the library's stained glass windows cast an unsettling glow on the scene, as if illuminating a passage into the unknown depths beneath. Lyubanya felt a mixture of curiosity and apprehension tugging at her senses, uncertain of what lay beyond the formidable barrier before her. Semyon's demeanor remained composed yet purposeful, his actions betraying a familiarity with the hidden passage that hinted at clandestine activities concealed from the prying eyes above. The guide, ever vigilant, observed silently, his presence a reminder of the enigmatic journey unfolding in the depths of Semyon's world. As Semyon entered the access code with practiced precision, the keypad emitted a soft beep, signaling acceptance. The heavy iron door creaked open slowly, revealing a descending staircase bathed in a dim, flickering light. The air grew colder as Lyubanya hesitated at the threshold, her mind racing with questions and apprehensions about what awaited them below. Descending into the subterranean depths, the staircase led them into a labyrinthine network of tunnels that seemed to stretch endlessly into the shadows. The walls were lined with shelves filled not with books, but with rows of meticulously organized documents, files, and folders. The musty scent of old paper mingled with an underlying sense of foreboding, amplifying the tension that hung in the air. Semyon navigated the labyrinth with a confidence that belied the uncertainty gnawing at Lyubanya's resolve. Each turn revealed more of the clandestine operation hidden beneath the facade of his ostensible success. The documents they passed bore cryptic labels and intricate seals, hinting at the complexity and gravity of the secrets contained within. The guide, ever watchful, maintained a stoic presence, his gaze shifting between Semyon and Lyubanya with a silent vigilance that underscored the gravity of their descent into the depths of deception. His occasional glance at Semyon spoke volumes of a shared history and a mutual understanding of the risks inherent in their clandestine pursuits. The further they ventured, the more Lyubanya realized the extent of Semyon's entanglement in a world where legality blurred into ambiguity, and moral boundaries dissolved in the pursuit of power and profit. Each document, each file they passed painted a portrait of a man driven not only by ambition, but by a willingness to navigate the murky waters of illicit dealings. The revelation of the secret room beneath the library marked a turning point in Lyubanya's perception of her son and the world he inhabited. It was a place where shadows danced with secrets, and each step deeper into the labyrinth brought them closer to the heart of darkness lurking beneath the surface of Semyon's outward success. In the eerie silence of the underground archives, Lyubanya confronted the chilling realization that her son's legacy was intricately woven with the threads of deception and clandestine maneuvers. The labyrinth of secrets beneath their feet echoed with the weight of choices made and consequences yet to unfold, casting a pall of uncertainty over their descent into the unknown depths of Semyon's hidden world. The guide hastened their pace, leading Lyubanya and Semyon into a vast chamber that lay beyond the labyrinthine passages. The room was unlike anything Lyubanya had ever imagined, a sprawling space filled with opulence and extravagance that spoke of wealth amassed through means both legal and shadowed. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting shimmering reflections upon polished marble floors adorned with intricate rugs of Persian design. Gilded frames encased priceless artworks that lined the walls, depicting scenes of opulent grandeur and historic significance. As Lyubanya took in the spectacle before her, she felt a pang of disquiet. This was not just a display of wealth, it was a testament to the excesses and complexities of her son's hidden life. Semyon moved through the room with practiced ease, his demeanor a blend of confidence and detachment that hinted at the toll exacted by his relentless pursuit of success. The guide, ever observant, remained at their side, his presence a reminder of the enigmatic journey they had embarked upon. His silence spoke volumes, underscoring the gravity of the revelations unfolding before Lyubanya's eyes. Semyon gestured toward a grand mahogany desk situated at the far end of the room, its surface cluttered with a mix of documents, high-tech gadgets, and a sleek laptop displaying intricate financial charts and graphs. He motioned for Lyubanya to approach, inviting her to glimpse the intricate web of business dealings and financial transactions that underpinned his facade of prosperity. The air in the room seemed thick with unspoken truths and unanswered questions. Lyubanya struggled to reconcile the lavish surroundings with the haunting realization that her son's pursuit of wealth had led him down a path fraught with moral ambiguity and perilous consequences. Each artifact, each painting, each piece of luxury furniture whispered tales of ambition unchecked and the compromises made in its pursuit. The guide's presence loomed large, a silent sentinel amid the opulence, his gaze steady and unwavering, as if silently urging Lyubanya to confront the harsh realities concealed beneath the veneer of success. His enigmatic demeanor hinted at a deeper understanding of the price paid for power and the shadows lurking within the corridors of influence. As Lyubanya stood in the midst of her son's hidden world, she realized that the pursuit of wealth and success, while promising material comfort, could also exact a toll on the soul. The grandeur of the room belied the emptiness that echoed within, a void born of compromises and sacrifices that threatened to engulf those who dared to traverse the murky waters of ambition. In the silence that enveloped them, Lyubanya contemplated the complexities of her son's life and the stark contrast between outward prosperity and inner turmoil. The chamber, once a symbol of achievement, now served as a poignant reminder that true happiness and inner peace were often elusive in the pursuit of worldly acclaim. As the guide watched over them, his presence a silent testament to the choices that shaped their destinies, Lyubanya grappled with the unsettling truth that wealth and success did not guarantee fulfillment or spiritual tranquility. The room bore witness to the fragile balance between ambition and morality, its walls echoing with the weight of decisions made and the consequences yet to unfold in the uncertain future that lay ahead. The guide and Lyubanya stepped into a stark, hospital-like bunker that contrasted sharply with the opulence of the previous chamber. Sterile white walls enclosed the space, illuminated by cold, fluorescent lighting that cast harsh shadows across the scene. In the center of the room, a chilling sight awaited them: a surgical table, its metal surface gleaming under the clinical lights. Bound to the table was a young woman, her face bruised and bloodied, her eyes wide with terror. Her mouth moved frantically, attempting to scream, but strips of tape silenced her desperate cries. The sight sent a shiver down Lyubanya's spine, the horror of the situation sinking in with each passing second. The guide's expression remained impassive, his demeanor grave as he silently gestured toward the restrained woman. His silence spoke volumes, conveying the gravity of the scene and the urgency of the situation they had stumbled upon. Lyubanya approached cautiously, her heart racing as she took in the scene before her. The young woman's struggles against her restraints were futile, the tape over her mouth muffling any coherent sound. Her eyes pleaded for help, mirroring the fear and desperation that gripped her. The bunker's air was heavy with the stench of antiseptic and fear, a stark contrast to the grandeur and wealth of the chambers above. Every detail in the room, the cold, metallic surfaces, the clinical precision of the equipment, and the haunting silence broken only by muffled cries underscored the grim reality of what transpired within those walls. The guide's presence loomed large, a silent sentinel amidst the chilling tableau. His eyes conveyed a mixture of empathy and resolve, silently urging Lubania to confront the horrors before them and to grasp the implications of her son's clandestine activities. As Lubania stood transfixed by the harrowing scene, she realized that the veneer of success and prosperity had masked a darker reality, a world where power and ambition had exacted a terrible price. The young woman's plight served as a stark reminder of the dangers lurking beneath the surface, hidden from view behind closed doors and guarded secrets. In the silence that enveloped them, Lubania struggled to comprehend the depths of her son's involvement in such malevolent deeds. The bunker, once a symbol of secrecy and control, now stood as a testament to the atrocities committed in pursuit of power and dominance. The young woman's eyes pleaded with Lubania, silently beseeching her to intervene, to break the silence and expose the horrors concealed within the bunker's sterile walls. The tape over her mouth stifled her cries for help, amplifying the sense of helplessness and despair that permeated the room. As Lubania turned to the guide, seeking answers amidst the chilling revelations, she realized that the journey had unveiled not only her son's hidden life, but also the fragility of innocence and the darkness that lurked within the human soul. The bunker's sterile confines echoed with the weight of unspoken truths, urging Lubania to confront the stark realities and make a choice that would shape their fates in ways she could scarcely imagine. Lubania's desperation surged as she attempted to free the young woman from her restraints, but her hands passed through the straps as if they were ethereal. It was a surreal and terrifying realization the scene before her was not a physical reality she could alter. The guide's voice cut through her frantic efforts, explaining with solemn finality that what she witnessed was a glimpse into the future, a future where she was powerless to intervene. The young woman's eyes pleaded with Lubania, mirroring her fear and agony. She fought against her bonds, her movements desperate and futile. Each attempt to reach out, to offer solace or aid, only reinforced the cruel reality that Lubania's actions were ineffectual in this realm. The bunker's sterile walls seemed to close in around them, trapping the palpable fear and suffering within its confines. The air grew heavier with each passing moment, carrying the weight of the young woman's silent screams and Lubania's helpless despair. The guide stood by, a silent sentinel amidst the turmoil, his presence a stark reminder of the boundaries between realities. His gaze held a mixture of empathy and resignation, acknowledging the torment but resolute in the understanding that this path could not be altered. Lubania's mind raced, grappling with the implications of this horrifying revelation. The realization that her son Semyon was entangled in such darkness, capable of inflicting such cruelty, shattered her illusions of his success and prosperity. It was a bitter truth she could no longer deny, a truth that threatened to consume her with its implications for their shared future. As she stood in the suffocating silence of the bunker, Lubania wrestled with her own complicity in Semyon's descent into darkness. Her attempts to rationalize his actions, to find solace in his achievements, crumbled under the weight of this harrowing vision of the future. The young woman's struggle against her bonds continued unabated, a stark reminder of the fragility of innocence and the relentless march of fate. Lubania's heart ached with the futility of her efforts, her inability to shield the vulnerable from the harsh realities that awaited them. In that moment, amidst the sterile confines of the bunker, Lubania confronted the limits of her influence and the terrifying truth that some futures were beyond her control. The guide's words echoed in her mind, a haunting refrain that spoke to the inevitability of the path, laid before them a path fraught with darkness and despair. As Lubania turned away from the scene, tears welled in her eyes, a silent testament to the anguish and guilt that threatened to consume her. The bunker's walls seemed to whisper secrets of sins committed and innocence lost, leaving her to confront the chilling reality of a future she could not change. As Semyon entered the bunker clad in a clinical medical suit and protective goggles, Lubania's shock deepened. His face bore a malevolent grin that sent chills down her spine, a stark contrast to the son she once knew, or thought she knew. The sterile lighting of the bunker accentuated the eerie ambience, casting long shadows that danced ominously across the walls. Semyon's presence seemed to fill the room with a palpable sense of dread, his demeanor devoid of the warmth and humanity Lubanya had hoped to find. His eyes, obscured behind the protective eyewear, gleamed with an unsettling intensity. Gone was the innocence she had once cherished, replaced now by a calculated coldness that unnerved her to the core. His every movement resonated with an unsettling confidence, as if he were the master of this dark domain. Lubanya struggled to reconcile the image before her with the memories of her son, the bright-eyed child she had raised amidst hardships and dreams of a better life. This transformation, from a hopeful youth to a figure embodying clinical detachment and sinister intent, shattered her illusions with brutal clarity. Semyon's demeanor betrayed no remorse, no hesitation in the face of the young woman's plight. Instead, he moved with a chilling efficiency, attending to tasks within the bunker that Lubanya could only guess at. Each action seemed to affirm his immersion in this shadowed world, a world where morality blurred and darkness thrived. The bunker's air thickened with tension, a suffocating silence broken only by the distant echoes of the young woman's muffled cries. Lubanya's heart pounded in her chest, torn between disbelief and a rising dread of what revelations awaited her in this place of secrets and despair. As Semyon turned towards her, his gaze piercing through the goggles with an unsettling clarity, Lubanya felt a wave of fear wash over her. This was not the reunion she had envisioned, not the future she had hoped for her son. In his gaze, she saw the stark reflection of choices made and paths diverged, a reflection that haunted her with its implications for their shared destiny. The guide stood silently beside her, a somber witness to the unfolding tragedy. His presence underscored the inevitability of this moment, the culmination of choices and circumstances that had led them to this fateful juncture. His silence spoke volumes, a testament to the limits of intervention in a world where darkness reigned unchecked. As Semyon moved closer, his expression remaining inscrutable behind the protective gear, Lubanya grappled with the chilling realization that her son had become a stranger, a harbinger of nightmares, rather than the beacon of hope she had once cherished. In that bleak moment, amidst the sterile confines of the bunker, Lubanya faced the terrifying truth that some transformations were irreversible. Semyon's descent into darkness was a stark reminder of the fragility of innocence and the inexorable march of fate, a truth that threatened to engulf her in its relentless grip. As Semyon apologized to the young woman for their interrupted business, a cold smirk played on his lips, belying any sincerity in his words. His voice, tinged with a chilling nonchalance, began recounting tales of his mother Lubanya the alcoholic. He described with unsettling clarity the horrors of his childhood, a time marred by neglect and indifference. In a clinical tone that mirrored the sterile environment around them, Semyon detailed how his mother's addiction had shaped his formative years. He spoke of nights spent alone, hunger gnawing at his young stomach, while Lubanya drowned herself in spirits. The memories poured forth like poison, each word a testament to the scars etched deep within his psyche. With a perverse sense of detachment, Semyon dissected his upbringing, painting a portrait of a woman consumed by her demons, oblivious to the needs of her own flesh and blood. His words cut through the silence of the bunker, mingling with the young woman's muffled sobs, creating an atmosphere thick with despair and resignation. Despite the darkness that clouded his narrative, there was no hint of remorse in Semyon's voice, no flicker of compassion for the young woman restrained before them. Instead, his recounting seemed to revel in the torment of his past, a perverse validation of his own transformation from victim to tormentor. As he continued, his gaze flickered towards Lubanya, whose shock and horror mirrored the young woman's anguish. Semyon's words struck with surgical precision, dissecting the fragile remnants of his mother's illusions about their shared past. The veil of denial, so carefully maintained by Lubanya, now torn asunder in the harsh light of her son's revelations. The guide, a silent observer amidst this twisted confession, stood sentinel, his presence a grim reminder of the inevitability of this encounter. His impassive demeanor underscored the grim reality that some wounds could never heal, some betrayals could never be forgiven. For Lubanya, the realization was devastating. Her son, once a beacon of hope amidst life's hardships, had become a manifestation of her worst fears realized. His transformation into a cold, calculated tormentor shattered any illusion she had clung to about their fractured relationship. As Semyon concluded his narrative, the bunker's sterile walls seemed to close in around them, suffocating in their clinical indifference. The young woman's muted cries echoed hollowly, a haunting refrain in the bleak tableau of despair. In that moment, amidst the oppressive silence, Lyubanya confronted the harrowing truth: her son, once her flesh and blood, had become a chilling embodiment of the darkness. She had unwittingly nurtured a legacy of pain and indifference that now bound them in an inescapable web of despair. Semyon's recollection of his childhood was a harrowing tale of brutality and deprivation, etched deeply into his memory. He recounted the relentless cycle of violence and hunger that defined his early years, inflicted upon him by his mother and her rotating companions. Each memory surfaced with vivid clarity, painting a picture of a young boy trapped in a nightmarish existence. From a young age, Semyon endured beatings that left physical scars mirroring the emotional wounds inflicted upon his tender psyche. He described how his mother's alcohol-fueled rages would erupt unpredictably, turning their modest home into a battleground where he became the unwitting target of her fury. The blows were not just punishments for imagined transgressions, but expressions of a twisted dominance that warped his understanding of parental love. Hunger, too, was a constant companion in Semyon's childhood narrative. Days would stretch into weeks without adequate food, the gnawing emptiness in his stomach a constant reminder of his mother's neglect. His voice carried the weight of resentment as he spoke of meager meals, or sometimes none at all, his body bearing witness to the stunted growth and perpetual weakness that defined his early years. Amidst the recounting of physical abuse and neglect, Semyon's tone turned icy with contempt when speaking of his mother. His words dripped with disdain as he described her indifference to his suffering, painting her as a figure of selfish indulgence, forever lost in the haze of alcohol and self-pity. He articulated his hatred in measured tones, each syllable laden with the burden of years of resentment and betrayal. In Semyon's narrative, there was no room for forgiveness or understanding. His childhood had been a crucible of pain, shaping him into a person devoid of empathy for the woman who had birthed him. The scars on his body mirrored the scars on his soul, testament to a childhood devoid of safety, love, or even the most basic care. As he concluded his tale, the air in the bunker seemed to thicken with the weight of his words. The young woman's muffled cries echoed off the sterile walls, a haunting soundtrack to Semyon's chilling testament of survival amidst cruelty. For Lyubanya, listening in stunned horror, her son's words cut deeper than any physical blow, laying bare the stark reality of their fractured relationship and the irreparable damage inflicted upon her child. In a fit of rage, Semyon drove the scalpel into the girl's thigh, his eyes burning with a mixture of fury and vindication. The metallic clang of the scalpel meeting resistance echoed through the tense air of the bunker, punctuating his narrative of cruelty and retribution. He spoke of his time in the orphanage with a bitter edge, recounting the humiliations and torments inflicted upon him by both peers and caretakers alike. Among the tormentors, he mentioned his moniker Little Angel, a sarcastic label bestowed upon him by those who reveled in his vulnerability. The scars of those days were not merely physical, but etched into his very psyche, festering wounds that refused to heal. Semyon's voice quivered with suppressed anger as he detailed the abuse, each word carrying the weight of years spent enduring the taunts and beatings of those who saw him as less than human. The orphanage walls, once a supposed sanctuary, had been transformed into a crucible of suffering, where survival meant enduring both physical and emotional torment. As he recalled the relentless assaults on his dignity, his hand clenched around the scalpel, the weapon now a symbol of both his pain and his capacity for violence. The girl whimpered in agony, her eyes wide with terror as she lay bound and helpless on the cold, sterile table. For Lyubanya, standing frozen in horrified disbelief, her son's descent into brutality unfolded before her like a nightmare from which there was no waking. The realization that the boy she had brought into the world had become a perpetrator of such cruelty shook her to the core, a stark reminder of the consequences of neglect and abuse left unchecked. In the dim light of the bunker, shadows danced across the walls, casting an eerie backdrop to Semyon's revelation of his darkest impulses. The air was thick with tension, each moment pregnant with the weight of his confession and the stark reality of the girl's suffering. As he stood over his victim, consumed by memories of torment and betrayal, Semyon's gaze hardened with resolve. The scars of his past had sculpted him into a vessel of vengeance, his actions driven by a twisted sense of retribution against a world that had forsaken him long ago. Semyon's tale of vengeance unfolded like a chilling saga of retribution and unresolved grievances. With a haunting intensity in his eyes, he recounted how he meticulously tracked down and punished every tormentor from his days in the orphanage, sparing none except his deceased mother, who had passed before he could exact his revenge. His voice carried a mix of bitterness and grim satisfaction as he detailed each act of retaliation. There was no hint of remorse in his narrative. Instead, there was a deep-seated thirst for retribution that seemed to fuel his every action. The wounds inflicted upon him during his tumultuous childhood had festered over the years, morphing into an insatiable desire to settle scores with those who had wronged him. Each perpetrator had been meticulously chosen, their punishments tailored to mirror the pain and humiliation they had inflicted upon him. He spoke of confrontations in dark alleys and abandoned buildings, where justice was meted out with a cold, methodical precision. For Semyon, the quest for vengeance had become a consuming obsession, a twisted quest for closure in a life marred by abandonment and brutality. His recounting of these acts of vengeance painted a portrait of a man driven by a singular purpose, his mind consumed by thoughts of payback for the injustices he had endured. The darkness of the bunker seemed to amplify the weight of his words, casting long shadows that danced eerily on the walls. The air was heavy with the scent of sterile disinfectants, mingling with the palpable tension that hung between him and his captive audience. As he spoke, Semyon's demeanor shifted between moments of chilling calm and flashes of raw emotion, revealing the complex layers of trauma and unresolved anger that defined his existence. His gaze, once distant and detached, now burned with an intensity that bordered on madness, a testament to the depths of his torment and the fervor of his quest for vengeance. In that bleak underground chamber, Lubanya stood transfixed, grappling with the harrowing realization of the darkness that had consumed her son. The revelation of his vendetta against those who had wronged him laid bare the depths of his despair and the terrifying lengths to which he was willing to go to reclaim his shattered sense of justice. For Semyon, the cycle of violence and retribution had become his twisted reality, a grim testament to the devastating consequences of a childhood scarred by neglect and abuse. His story echoed through the cold, sterile confines of the bunker, a haunting reminder of the human capacity for both cruelty and the relentless pursuit of vindication. Semyon's self-praise for his financial acumen unfolded like a chilling testament to his cunning and ambition. With a demeanor that blended arrogance and calculated confidence, he boasted about his ability to craft intricate financial schemes that had made him indispensable to oligarchs and politicians alike. He spoke of his ventures with an air of detachment, as though recounting conquests on a battlefield where money and power were the ultimate spoils. His schemes, he claimed, were engineered with precision and foresight, designed to exploit loopholes in the law and capitalize on the greed and desperation of those in positions of influence. To Semyon, financial genius wasn't merely a label, it was a shield against scrutiny and a license to operate beyond the constraints of morality. He reveled in his perceived invulnerability, likening it to the neutrality of Switzerland during wartime, where his operations remained insulated from the turbulence and scrutiny of the outside world. His demeanor betrayed no hint of remorse or ethical qualms. Instead, there was a cold pragmatism that underscored his every word. For him, the complexities of financial manipulation were a means to an end, a path to accumulating wealth and influence while exacting a measure of control over those who once overlooked or mistreated him. In the dimly lit confines of the bunker, his words echoed with a disquieting clarity, painting a portrait of a man whose intellect and ambition had become entwined with a ruthless pursuit of dominance. His accounts of financial conquests and the labyrinthine networks he navigated spoke volumes about the moral vacuum that defined his worldview. As he spoke, Semyon's gaze, steely and unyielding, hinted at the depths of his ambition and the lengths to which he would go to protect his empire. The sterile environment of the bunker seemed incongruous with the vastness of his ambitions, yet it provided a fitting backdrop to his narrative of control and manipulation. For Lubanya, listening to her son extol his achievements in such a callous manner was a stark reminder of the darkness that had consumed him. His success in the world of finance was not merely a reflection of his intelligence, but a testament to the profound wounds and insecurities that had shaped his relentless pursuit of power. In that moment, as Semyon basked in the glow of his own accomplishments, Lyubanya found herself grappling with the realization that her son had become a formidable force, one whose brilliance and ruthlessness had transformed him into a figure feared and revered in equal measure. His story was not just about financial prowess, it was a harrowing tale of ambition unchecked and the moral compromises that defined his ascent to power. As Lyubanya attempted to intervene and reason with Semyon, a chilling transformation swept over him. His initial reaction was a sudden twitch, a flicker of annoyance that betrayed an undercurrent of hidden malice. In that moment, his features contorted into a mask of calculated cruelty and cunning, his eyes darting around with a predatory vigilance. Gone was the facade of the successful and composed man he portrayed moments ago. Instead, Lyubanya glimpsed the true essence that lurked beneath the ruthless manipulator who navigated the shadows of power with unnerving ease. His demeanor hardened, exuding a coldness that pierced through the dimly lit bunker, amplifying the sense of foreboding that enveloped them. Semyon's face, once a canvas of self-assuredness and authority, now revealed the darker facets of his nature. His lips curled into a sneer, revealing a hint of contempt masked by a veneer of false civility. Each movement and glance spoke volumes of a mind sharpened by adversity, honed into a weapon capable of inflicting both psychological and physical harm without hesitation. For Lyubanya, confronting this side of her son was a harrowing realization, a stark testament to how far he had strayed from the innocent child she once knew. In the shadows of the bunker, where the air hung heavy with unspoken truths and unyielding ambition, she saw the stark contrast between the facade he presented to the world and the chilling reality of his true nature. As Semyon's gaze locked onto her with a predatory intensity, Lyubanya felt a shiver run down her spine. His demeanor spoke of a predator honed by the trials of his upbringing, a man whose ambitions transcended mere success and delved into the realms of domination and control. In that moment, she understood the depth of his transformation, a transformation that had turned her son into a formidable force driven by primal instincts and a hunger for power. In the stillness of the bunker, surrounded by the trappings of his wealth and influence, Semyon's true face emerged, an unsettling portrait of ambition unchecked and morality discarded. It was a face that Lyubanya knew she could no longer recognize as solely her son's, but as a manifestation of the darkness that had consumed him, a darkness that now threatened to engulf them both. As Semyon resumed his cruel interrogation of the bound girl, the atmosphere in the bunker grew even more suffocating. His voice echoed with a chilling detachment, emphasizing his willingness to inflict pain for his own satisfaction. Lyubanya, paralyzed by the horror unfolding before her eyes, felt a surge of desperation to intervene, to stop her son from descending further into darkness. But just as she mustered the courage to speak out, the scene around her began to blur and fade. The harsh lights of the bunker dimmed, and the walls of the sterile room dissolved into obscurity. Confusion gripped her as the familiar surroundings of the bunker gave way to an ethereal emptiness. Suddenly, the figure of the guide materialized before her, his presence a reassuring anchor in the midst of turmoil. His voice, resonant and firm, cut through the haze of disbelief and fear. "You have seen enough," he declared, his eyes piercing through to Lyubanya's core with a mix of compassion and solemnity. With a gentle gesture, the guide beckoned her away from the harrowing tableau. As Lyubanya reluctantly tore her gaze from the haunting scene, she found herself once again sitting on the edge of a bed, her bed in her own reality. The cold sweat clinging to her skin, the racing of her heart, all served as a stark reminder of the intensity of the vision she had just experienced. In the quiet solitude of her room, Lyubanya struggled to reconcile the brutality she had witnessed with the son she once knew. The lingering echoes of Semyon's voice, filled with malice and justification, reverberated in her mind. She realized with a sinking feeling that the darkness that gripped him was not a mere illusion but a haunting reality she could no longer deny. With trembling hands, she reached for a glass of water on the nightstand, her thoughts swirling in a tumultuous whirlpool of disbelief and sorrow. The guide's words echoed in her mind, reminding her of the fragility of the boundaries between reality and the horrors that lurked beneath the surface. As she stared into the darkness beyond her window, Lyubanya knew that the ordeal had changed her irrevocably. The vision had peeled away the layers of denial, revealing the stark truth about her son's descent into a world she had never fathomed. And as she contemplated the weight of what she had seen, she wondered if there was any hope left to save him from the abyss that threatened to consume them both. The guide's words hung in the air like a delicate balance between salvation and damnation. As Lyubanya sat on the edge of her bed, still trembling from the vividness of the vision, she felt the weight of his final directive pressing down upon her. "You've seen what lies beneath," the guide's voice echoed softly, yet it resonated with a solemn urgency. His presence, a steady anchor amidst the tumult of emotions, offered her a moment of respite in the aftermath of the harrowing ordeal. Lyubanya's mind raced with conflicting thoughts, grappling with the enormity of the decision laid before her. The image of her son, once innocent and full of promise, now intertwined with the chilling revelation of his descent into darkness, haunted her thoughts. The room around her seemed to blur, blending the familiarity of her modest surroundings with the lingering echoes of the sterile bunker. Every detail of the vision, the sterile walls, the bound girl, Semyon's unsettling transformation etched itself into her memory with a chilling permanence. The guide's parting words echoed once more, a gentle yet firm reminder of the choice that now rested squarely upon her shoulders. "Awaken," he urged, his voice carrying both a plea and a challenge. The decision, he implied, was hers alone to make. Lyubanya closed her eyes, her hands trembling as she tried to steady her breathing. The enormity of the revelation threatened to overwhelm her, yet amidst the turmoil, a flicker of determination sparked within her soul. She knew that whatever path she chose, it would irrevocably alter the course of her life and perhaps Semyon's as well. With a deep breath, she opened her eyes to the dimly lit room, the shadows casting an eerie dance upon the walls. The reality of her situation settled around her like a heavy shroud. She was faced with a choice that could not be undone, a choice that demanded courage and clarity in the face of unspeakable darkness. As Lyubanya contemplated her next move, a resolve began to take root within her heart. The guide had offered her a glimpse into the depths of her son's soul, revealing both the torment and the twisted logic that drove him. Now, she must decide how to navigate the treacherous waters ahead, armed only with the knowledge that ignorance was no longer an option. The echoes of Semyon's voice, laced with malice and self-justification, reverberated in her mind. The image of the bound girl, her eyes pleading for mercy, stirred a fierce determination within Lyubanya. She could not turn away from the truth, nor could she allow herself to succumb to despair. With a final nod to the guide's unseen presence, Lyubanya rose from the bed, her steps tentative yet resolute. The journey ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but she knew that she could no longer remain passive in the face of evil. As she approached the window, the first rays of dawn pierced through the darkness, casting a faint glow upon her weary face. The world outside seemed to hold its breath, waiting for her decision to unfold. With a steadying breath, Lyubanya whispered to herself, "I must face what lies ahead. For Semyon, for myself, for the truth." And with that whispered vow, she turned away from the window, ready to confront the harsh reality that awaited her. The guide's words lingered in her mind like a silent prayer, urging her onward as she stepped into the uncertain dawn of her new reality. As Lyubanya slowly awakened from the haunting vision that had gripped her in the depths of her sleep, she found herself in the familiar comfort of her home. The remnants of the surreal journey through her son's potential future lingered like a fading nightmare, the images still vivid in her mind. Beside her, young Semyon, her beacon of innocence and hope, sat quietly, sensing his mother's distress. His eyes, wide and concerned, reflected a mix of confusion and empathy as he gently reached out to touch her trembling hand. "Mom, are you okay?" Semyon's voice was soft, tinged with worry. His presence, grounding and real, reminded Lyubanya of the stark contrast between the terrifying visions and the warmth of her son's concern. Lyubanya took a deep breath, attempting to reconcile the unsettling experiences of the night with the reassuring presence of her son beside her. The guide, who had guided her through the labyrinthine corridors of a possible future, had vanished into the ether, leaving her to grapple with the aftermath of what she had witnessed. The room around her, bathed in the soft morning light filtering through the curtains, seemed to offer solace and familiarity after the ordeal. Yet, the memory of the sterile bunker, the bound girl, and Semyon's chilling transformation lingered on the edges of her consciousness. With a tender smile, Lyubanya gathered Semyon into her arms, holding him close, as if to dispel the lingering echoes of the nightmarish vision. She whispered reassurances, seeking to soothe both her own fears and those that had inadvertently seeped into her son's innocent world. As the minutes passed, the heaviness in Lyubanya's heart gradually eased. She felt a sense of resolve building within her, a determination to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. The guide's enigmatic presence and his parting words echoed in her mind a reminder of the choice she had faced and the path she had chosen to return to her reality. Outside, the world resumed its ordinary rhythm, oblivious to the inner turmoil that had gripped Lyubanya's soul just hours before. The morning sounds filtered through the window, a distant car passing by, birds chirping in the nearby trees, as if to reaffirm the continuity of life beyond the confines of her unsettling dreams. With a final glance at her son, whose innocent gaze mirrored a universe of possibilities, yet untainted by the darkness she had glimpsed, Lyubanya felt a sense of gratitude wash over her, gratitude for the chance to awaken from the nightmare, to hold her son close, and to embrace the ordinary moments that anchored her in the present. The guide's disappearance remained an enigma, a testament to the surreal nature of the journey she had undertaken. Yet, as Lyubanya savored the simple joy of her son's presence, she knew that whatever lay ahead, she would face it with renewed strength and clarity, a testament to the resilience of a mother's love and the unyielding spirit that had guided her through the depths of her darkest fears. As the harrowing night's events settled into the quiet corners of their thoughts, Lyubanya and her partner found themselves drawn into a deep, contemplative conversation about the nature of cruelty and human behavior. They sat together in the dim glow of their living room, the remnants of the night's ordeal still haunting their minds. Lyubanya's partner, a thoughtful and introspective soul, began by reflecting on the complexities of society and its impact on individuals. What we witnessed, he began slowly, was not just a glimpse into a possible future, but a stark reminder of how cruelty can manifest in the darkest corners of human existence. Lyubanya nodded solemnly, her mind still grappling with the vivid images of Semyon's potential path and the chilling acts she had witnessed. "It's frightening to think," she murmured, "that such darkness can reside within someone we love, or even within ourselves." Her partner reached out, gently squeezing her hand in reassurance. "These are the questions that haunt us," he continued, his voice tinged with a mixture of sadness and introspection. Are cruel people simply products of their environment, shaped by circumstances beyond their control? Or is there something deeper, a fundamental flaw in our humanity? They both fell silent for a moment, lost in their thoughts, before Lyubanya spoke again, her words tinged with a trace of resolve. "Perhaps," she ventured, "it's both. Society molds us, but our choices define us. Semyon, he could have been a victim of his circumstances, yet he chose a path of darkness." Her partner nodded thoughtfully. "Yes, and perhaps therein lies the most unsettling truth of all, that within every person there exists the capacity for both good and evil. It's the choices we make, especially in the face of adversity, that reveal our true nature." They sat together in quiet contemplation, the weight of their conversation mingling with the soft rustling of leaves outside. For Lyubanya and her partner, the night had been a journey into the depths of fear and uncertainty, but it had also sparked a profound dialogue about the human condition, a dialogue that would continue to shape their understanding of themselves and the world around them. As they leaned into each other's presence, finding solace in the warmth of shared contemplation, they knew that the horrors of the night had not been in vain. They had confronted the darkness, not just in their dreams, but in their hearts and minds, emerging stronger and more aware of the complexities that define human existence. And as the first light of dawn painted the horizon with hues of hope and renewal, Lyubanya and her partner found comfort in the knowledge that despite the darkness they had witnessed, they were not powerless. Together, they would navigate the uncertain waters of the future, guided by their newfound insights into the nature of cruelty and the resilience of the human spirit.